If you've always wanted to support the show with your hard-earned cash, now's the time to pause, go to Patreon, and search out FNRad. Join one of our tiers. You'll get ad-free episodes every week, one day early, plus more cool stuff. The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Skyview Campers, Never Summer's innovative take on the tiny home. Designed and built in beautiful Colorado. Check out skyviewcampers.com. Wired Snowboards builds quality snowboards by hand 10 minutes away from my house. Visit wiredsnowboards.com and order one today. Fixed bindings are easy to adjust, long-lasting, high-performance bindings built to have less impact on the environment. Check out fixedbindingco.com. Rip Curl outerwear, strength, durability, and performance. Designed to search further in the snow, head to ripcurl.com and check out the Anti-Series jacket. I can't wait to rock this thing. New Greens, 100% organic, vibrant green juice. Buy yourself some at newgreens.com and use code FNRad at checkout for 20% off. The Boardroom Snowboard Shop, best selection, best prices, Vancouver's premier snowboard shop. The Boardroom ships to anywhere in North America, so go to boardroomshop.com or visit their stores in Vancouver and North Van. Support also comes from Mount Seymour, Grouse Mountain, Cypress Mountain, the Pro Standard GoPro accessories, and our friends at 1910. You can use code FNRad at checkout for 20% off at 1910.com. The Haven's a center for transformational learning located on beautiful Gabriola Island. Plan a visit at haven.ca and use code FNRad at checkout to save 10% off their Come Alive program. Chris Nichols is a Calgary born and raised former pro snowboarder who's been an important part of Canadian snowboarding. Chris was a West Beach pro rider and eventually was the man at 4-Star Distribution, the Canadian distributor for Forum, Special Blend, Foursquare, Circa Shoes, and C1 Denim, among other important brands. Nick's articles in Canadian snowboard publications like Concrete Powder and Snowboard Canada captured the voice of core snowboarding in Canada in the 1990s. I'm really honored to have him on the show.
So I went to the CSA camp. We couldn't afford the Craig Kelly camp.
What's CSA?
CSA was Canadian Snowboard or CFF or CSF or something. Yeah, I think it was Canadian CSA.
Yeah.
But it was like the bikes on Denman, you know, that way. And they were like a snowboard shop as well.
I've never talked to that guy, but that guy had some serious history in snowboarding.
Yeah, like he was the, I think before any of the major snowboard shops popped up in Vancouver, he was the guy out here type of thing.
Interesting.
But, yeah, like I thought I was coming out and going to be taught by, you know, Brushy and
because they were there, they were on the glacier.
I got here and, you know, it's like, okay, guys, welcome to camp and everything. And here's your instructor, Dano Pendergrass.
Yes.
I mean, I love Dano to death.
Me too.
But he wasn't the draw.
Yeah, he was on Sims at the time and he was, yeah.
Yeah, no, not you. Yeah, maybe.
Checker Pig. Not Checker Pig, Crazy Banana.
Crazy Banana.
Yeah, Crazy Banana.
That was
Holy
Crazy
fuck,
Banana face.
Dude. Incredible.
So anyways, I came out here. I got to go to the snowboard camp. I had no idea how big this place was. And, you know, I mean, I think the biggest thing that impressed me was that I got here, got on the first lift, the Wizard, and it was an hour before I was at the top of the mountain, you know, and I was like, holy shit. Like,
just kept going up.
Yeah. You know, you go up, you get on a bus, you go over and you go on to Seventh Heaven. And now all of a sudden you're on this glacier in the middle of summertime.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that, you know, so.
Yeah. And you were Calgary, dude.
Yes. Yeah. Born and raised in Calgary. And yeah. I mean, back there it was more, back there, that was another big part of it. Is like we were COP, which is the local mountain. That was our like after school go ride the half pipe practice type thing, and then on the weekends we'd go out to Fortress, Sunshine, Lake Louise, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But all of that was like an hour away, hour and a half, 2 hours to Louise.
Yeah.
So to come out here and go like, you're at the mountain, like you're staying in the hotel and the lift is like, because there's nowhere else like that in Canada, you know? where you're actually, the town is the mountain. Like, you go to Sunshine, but you're staying in Banff. You go to Louise, but you're staying at the base of the hill, 3 kilometers away or whatever.
Totally.
Panorama, it was like, staying in Invermere and all that stuff. So
Right. Apex, the whole thing. They're destinations. Silver Star's got a village, but
they all do now.
Yeah.
They all do now. But I think even back in the day, if you went back to Big White and everything 35, 40 years ago, there was probably a few cabins, but not like a village.
When you say it like that, 35, 40 years ago sounds so long ago, but it's like that we were riding. Like, we were going and riding these mountains. Yeah, I went to Mount Hood for camp in 1990, I think. And it was either 90 or 91.
Yeah.
Life changer.
Oh, totally.
Game changer.
Yeah.
Like, being in the big mountains, like, you're from where there's mountains, but like, my home hill was like COP's maybe double the size.
Where is that?
Sudbury.
Oh, right.
Where Strato's from.
Yeah.
Yeah, we rode Adanac together at least once. And then there were secret spots that weren't even that big. Like, just like a ditch at the side of a road or something.
Or like the side of a hill that is beside a highway and you build a kicker.
100%. We had that. And one time a train went by and a piece of wood fell off like a tree, and then we had a tree jib. That's the truth.
I believe it.
Coming down from the highway, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. I always hear the stories about Ontario and Quebec and everything. I've never ridden out there, so I don't know. I've ridden in Vermont, but never in...
Vermont's, New England has good mountains, actually. The terrible snow, good mountains.
Yeah.
Sorry, New Englanders. You probably have great snow. I don't know. The time I went to Lake Placid, I was like, wow, this is fucking just like icy.
I think there's never been a day that I've seen East Coast POW, which is like 2 to 3 centimeters or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a leprechaun or something. Yeah.
No, I saw the bulletproof ice and I saw the see-through ice.
Yeah,
and,
see-through. Jesus.
Yeah. You're seeing the...
We call stuff ice here that's really like pretty good
Yeah.
conditions, actually. It's like, yeah. You're still riding quite a bit, right? Like you've been riding.
Yeah.
Did you get that POW that just
I
hit?
did. I was. Yeah. I've had a pretty rough year, but I was able to hit all that. As you know, the start of the year was just crap. There was like terrible. A few good days, but it was mostly just horrible. So it was very hard to get into it, get going. Then right around Christmas time, I visited my parents for a bit. And then I came back and we went on a trip to Calgary and Edmonton to visit my family and my girlfriend Joe's family. And on Boxing Day, I woke up. At first, I thought I was hungover, but then I was really deathly sick for like 3 days.
Oh, fuck.
Felt well enough to drive home back to Whistler. I was like, okay, cool. It's gone. Next day, I woke up and I was sick for another 10 days. So like almost 2 weeks in total. The day that I finally felt better was the day it dumped 42 centimeters. Oh, wow. And I'm like, oh my God, like chaos everywhere, like lineups galore and everything. I was like, okay, I got to get up there for like at least one run. So went straight to $1 Million, went through it. It was like, okay, it's still pretty low tide and everything, but you know, we're navigating. Yeah. We're on our way out. I can see the road. I'm like 100 meters from it. And I catch a log underneath my board. My edge shoots out. I catch the log. My body goes down onto another ice log underneath, and I break 2 ribs.
Oh, the worst.
Like just
ribs are
a
terrible.
Nothing traverse fall, like barely even moving. But yet I just slam down so hard that it just takes out 2 ribs. So I'm now out for 6 weeks or so. And I got up there a couple of days, just went up and cruised around and like
so
mellow.
Dangerous with ribs,
but it's just, it wasn't the ribs were hurting. I was just terrified by everybody around me. You know, it was, the conditions were way too icy and way too crazy to be like, somebody's going to stop before they plow into my ribs. So,
right.
So I kind of only went up a bit. I started feeling good. I went up for the little bit of POW that was like 3 or 4 weeks ago or something like that. And then when I say a little bit, it was like 10 centimeters on dust on crust.
Yeah. Low tide already too. Right. Yeah,
I was like, this is amazing because I haven't ridden powder all year.
Yeah.
And maybe 2 or 3 days after that, I hear that my dad has become very sick and is in the hospital, and he's been battling COPD for 5 years, 10 years almost. He has, he goes to the hospital and they say he has double pneumonia.
Oh, God.
And
what even is double pneumonia? So, both lungs, I guess?
Good question. I had to look it up, too.
Yeah,
everybody throws it around, pneumonia, double pneumonia. Like, was it twice as bad?
Right.
Well, yes, but it's both lungs.
Both lungs.
Both lungs get pneumonia. And I was just like, okay, there's literally a nail in his coffin. That's, there's no way he's coming back from this.
Buy the ticket, go to Calgary.
Yeah. So anyways, now all of a sudden the snow is falling and it's deep, deep, and it keeps going. But in the back of my mind, I'm dealing with this issue that my dad is going to pass away.
Right.
But you know what? It's like a salvation. It's not like he would want me to sit there and just mourn about it all day long or whatever. So it was really good for me to go up and ride every single day and get the best conditions and just put a smile on my face and then come back and call and say, how are you doing? How are you feeling? All that kind of stuff. But it was amazing. And then, and then we went over and did what we had to do over on the island. So
your post about it was just like, I haven't seen one like that before. Like where it was, because you're not that guy on Instagram. That's not your mode. And I don't know you that well, but your reputation is also not that guy. You know what I mean? When you would write for the magazines back in the day, the tone of your writing.
I think you're paid to write something in a way that people want it written.
Sure.
Like this is what we want. We want this edgy attitude or whatever.
Exactly.
Right. For me, the second that I heard that we were going through with this, that eulogies are wasted on the living. Right?
True.
Why do we wait until somebody passes away and we tell all these great things to everybody else about how great this person is, but you never say it to their face or write that letter beforehand, like why save it? And, it was years ago when Chili was passing away. He had cancer and everything. And there was this one last hurrah at the GLC, and it was a living wake. They literally called it a living wake. And, it was a chance for everybody to come up to Chili and say goodbye. And I was like, that's so amazing. Why does that not happen more often? So I kind of try to address it like that. I want to say the things I need to say and tell him how great of a person he was and everything. Then just say it to his face. I want the world to know, so.
That was sick, dude. Like I'm reading it, I was like, wow, that's, because you're scrolling on Instagram, never know what you're going to come up against. And then when I saw it, I was like, engaged. And then as I'm scrolling down, I'm like, wow, he wrote a lot actually, and I was into it. Like I was touched by it.
Yeah. And I heard that from a lot of people for sure.
Of course you did. Yeah. That makes sense.
But it's maybe a, I don't know how you say it. It's more about, it's about for myself too, to be able to put that out there and say the things and get it out there. My dad read it. He thought it was beautiful and everything like that. But it was more my kind of closure on the thing. Like, hey, as we get closer to the date, it might be harder to say or
less clear in your head.
Yeah, and will he remember it and everything. But anyways, I kicked off a firestorm because everybody started sending him letters and everybody had to do their version. And
that's amazing.
And my dad was just sitting there till the last minute, like, oh, we got another email from so-and-so. Like, who is that? I don't know. Some guy I worked with,
Oh, that's awesome, though.
But yeah, I think that's, such a better way to kind of deal with it at the end than the crying and that point comes too. But
Right.
Well, celebration rather than the tragedy, right?
Yeah, I haven't lost a parent yet, but I have a close friend that did, and his journey through it was, I'm watching him going. It looks like the story I'm telling myself about it is that he wants to be more upset. He wants it to affect his day to day more, Whereas it's like, well, how much time do you spend with your parents when? After you've moved out and then you see him maybe once a year, twice a year. I don't know how much time you spent with your dad, but it's like.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, probably not enough, but quite a bit. I was over there, like they just live on Vancouver Island, so I was over there all the time. I mean, in the last year, I was there 5-6 times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's more, everybody pictures something that way until it actually happens. And I figured I would be in the same boat, that I would just be uncontrollable. Like,
totally.
My dad was one of my best friends, right? We could talk about anything. Everything was great.
Yeah.
But I think it's different from what we experience when somebody dies in an avalanche or a car crash or just taken from us suddenly and at a younger age and not expected. You know, it's like not how many times, but there's been times where it's just, I was just talking to that guy, you know?
Yes.
And he's gone. Or like we just rode on Thursday and he's gone, you know?
Yeah.
And that to me is more of, it's harder to control because it just doesn't seem real.
Right.
Whereas the situation that we were in, it was coming. You know, you saw it coming down the road. And I think that's the first thing I said. It's like we always knew it was coming. We just didn't know when. And we always kind of kicked the can down the road and said, oh, you know, you'll be fine. You'll be next month. You know, you'll make it to your birthday, whatever. And then all of a sudden when it actually happens, you're like, okay, it's here. I was emotional, but I don't think it's like really affected me in the sense like I'm not at a loss yet.
Right,
so to speak.
Right. Didn't wreck your life.
It'll be a loss when, you know, his birthday comes by and when he's not there.
Totally.
Next Christmas, you know, like 2 years down the road, whatever it may be. Or I could just be like in Canadian Tire and see a hammer in there and go, oh shit, there's Dad's hammer.
Right.
You know, like, I don't know.
That's great that you guys were, you know, great friends, best friends. Was that all the way through, or was there a time where like you moved away and you weren't as close? Or
I mean, more than once he called us peckerheads and everything. You know that it wasn't. We weren't perfect children. And he wasn't a perfect father.
Sure.
You know, but we had a fairly good relationship. I think more so just worrisome dad stuff. You know, like there wasn't really any big rifts or times where we never we didn't talk to each other, you know.
Mom, tell him that I'm blah, blah,
like,
blah, or whatever. I'm not talking to him right now.
It was if we ever had arguments or fights, it was short lived and we moved on pretty quickly from it.
That's cool. So was he stoked on snowboarding when you first got into it?
You know, it's funny because, he wasn't really stoked on snowboarding per se, but he was stoked on his kids, and he recognized the love and the passion for shit.
Cool.
That, you know, as you read in there, that he was into racing, you know, and that he had this passion for racing. And that was right around 86, I think, that he, 85, 86, that he started it. And he ended up starting his own racing apparel company called Pepper's Racing Apparel. And so he would sell helmets and the fireproof suits and gloves and all that kind of stuff, right? And like, he just did it. Like, he had no previous knowledge other than like a few months before, and started getting into it and contacted all the suppliers. And because I think he tried to buy a race suit and couldn't find one anywhere in Calgary. So he was like, hey, if I can't find one, what about all these other people? Anyways, to fast forward, so he has this set up, and we start telling him, hey, Dad, you know what'd be cool to sell to the race car drivers is Oakley sunglasses. You know, like you should get Oakley.
Rad.
And at this point, like there wasn't a lot of Oakley dealers in Calgary and everything. And I always remembered it from more motocross and BMX, right? Not snowboarding and
grips. It was
like,
Oakley grips.
Yeah, they started with nobody knows that, but some people know that. You did.
Yeah.
But they started with grips on BMX bikes and on motocross bikes, right?
Yeah, which became the like nose piece thing.
Yeah, and then they did the factory pilots and all that stuff.
I worked a summer picking golf. Okay, I worked a day picking golf balls out of like a water hole. And then we would go to the ball cleaner, clean them, put them in a bag of 12.
So he's old enough to get some.
I think I sold 10 dozen or something. I had $100, and I'm like, well, then I want fucking factory pilots for sure. Not very practical for snowboarding, but
But that was the cool thing. Then we were like, we got to get these or whatever. So we're kind of like goading my dad into becoming an Oakley dealer.
Sick.
So that we could get cheap Oakleys.
Of course.
But so he did it. He reaches out to the guy, and it happens to be Gilmore Sports, which at the time was Burton.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Right?
That's amazing.
And we're like, are you kidding me? Like he's got all these products, and like not only Oakley, but now we have Burton at our disposal.
Unbelievable.
So my dad was like, hey, we want to get can I get some snowboards off you? And he's like, well, actually, you know, the boards I can't do. He's like, I'll tell you what, I've got a couple of sample boards. Would you be interested in buying those? And he's like, yeah, sure. And like comes home and tells me, he's like, I've got this board, but it's not out to the public yet, but it's a sample. And I'm like, what is it? He's like, something Kelly mystery air. I'm like, you're shitting me. You want, I can buy a Craig Kelly mystery air before anybody else gets it,
Unfucking believable.
So he gets me the Craig Kelly mystery air, gets my brother the air.
Yep.
And they were the prototypes. They were the ones that everybody sought after. They were the yellow, white, and
the mayo.
Red.
Yeah, the mayo.
The mayo, not the ketchup ones, right?
Unbelievable.
And or with the black or whatever.
Yeah,
and then the air was the green air with the red letter or the purple lettering, not the purple one with the red lettering.
That's so awesome.
It was unbelievable. And I like, but again, I didn't even realize what I had in my hands but Craig Kelly was my favorite snowboarder, and I was oh my God.
Yeah.
And then I get on that board, and that was the board that changed snowboarding.
It was so good. Yeah.
I mean, the difference that I rode before then and after then is like literally like the...
what was your board you had before that? Did you have I had an avalanche kick, and then I went to that, and, just night and day.
So I started... actually, no, the first board I ever rode... I rode a board in 1984.
Holy shit.
Yeah. But it was my brother's friend, my brother Rob. His friend went down to Texas, of all places. His dad lived in Austin. And he brought back a SnowTech board. No bindings, just like the water ski, like step-in things.
Sick.
And we brought that up to our cabin, and there was like 1.5 feet, 2 feet of snow. We just went to the hill across the way and rode down and just took turns.
Yeah.
And that was my introduction to snowboarding, and I tried that. And then fast forward, I remember 1985, I asked my parents for a Burton Elite snowboard. I need this Burton Elite. I want this Burton Elite. They're like, my mom, no, you don't like snowboarding. All right, you're not going to like snowboarding in 2 years. You're a skier. This is a fad. You're not going to be into it. I'm like, no, Mom, I love it. Like, no, But the reason why they were telling me that I didn't want this snowboard is because they had already gone out and bought me a pair of skis in the summertime for Christmas.
Fuck. Yeah.
So like, it was already under the tree wrapped like back in July.
Yeah.
And so they're like, so anyways, the following year, it was like, if you want a snowboard, you're going to have to earn some money and buy it yourself.
Yep.
Sure enough, I did the same. I'm probably not the same as you. I think I worked at my dad's office or something like that. Got a bunch of money built up and had enough to buy it. And then they said, okay, we'll pay for half of it since you did this or whatever. Went down to the snowboard shop, talked to Ken, found this 130 barfoot plank. Like,
sick.
Yeah, I wish I still had it. But this plank, like, seemed ancient even for like those days. Like it had metal edges, but it also had fins.
Awesome.
And I took the fins off right away, and then the bindings and everything were like the Fast Sex clips and the old barfoot thigh backs and not high backs, thigh backs.
Yeah, the mega ones. Yeah.
And so I got that. And then year after that, I sold that and got an Avalanche, but it was the Reflex or something.
Ooh, the ironing board. Yeah.
Like it was, the edges were so straight on there. You could use it to draw, you could use it in architecture to draw a straight line.
That's nuts.
So that board sucked for me. Sold that. And then the next year I finally got like a new like Sims half pipe.
Sick.
The one with the big long nose or whatever. So got that. And then that finally had side cut and some flex and everything.
Yeah, those boards are still rideable now.
Yeah.
Bit of powder.
Yeah, and then the Craig Kelly, and then everything else was...
the Craig from that's a big... Because you've got proper side cut, proper kicks.
Everything, like just the whole, quadratic side cut.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I had a ketchup and mustard that was stamped demo on the nose.
Nice.
That I bought, I guess the year after, like... It had been out for a whole year with his name on it.
Yeah.
The whole thing. And I loved it. It was a great board. Yeah, it's funny how you did, like, I mean, I forget who said it, maybe David Benedict, but at that time, if someone had all the new gear, the chance that they were a poser was pretty high. You know what I mean? Like if they had like the brand new board, the brand new Burton boots, the brand new everything. Like we were just scrubs. We were going after like scraps from, years before. Oh, it's a barfoot. You know,
totally.
It's got a swallowtail though.
Well, and also just the cost of it back then. That was like, well, I mean, even just for kids, but you know, there wasn't a lot of product out there.
There wasn't.
You know, today you could go and find a million different boards wherever, but yeah, like it's just even like there was only 2 snowboard dealers in all of Calgary or whatever, you know.
Right. And you worked for the other one eventually, right?
I didn't work for them. I ended up riding for Skaters. Cascade worked at Skaters and whatnot.
Right.
That was my neck of the woods in Calgary.
Yeah.
So to go to Skaters was like a 5-minute drive, 10-minute drive, or something like that.
Yeah.
To go to the snowboard shop was like a 45-minute journey, sea train, everything like that. So, yeah, it was a weird. There was a weird rift between Skaters and snowboard shop that I like still bring up with Ken to this day. That like, I don't know why. I mean, I guess it was small time and he was poaching on his turf or something, you know. And Jerry, you know, the guy from Skaters, was like, you know, he didn't come like Ken was a full on snowboarder, skateboarder that brought it to Canada and everything. But But Jerry was like, you know, he was a businessman. He was the same as my dad. He just wanted to provide for his kids. His kids were into skateboarding and he got into it. And, you know, but then, he's not cool and blah, blah, blah. And like,
right.
It's just so weird.
I get it, though. I get it. I get both sides. Like, it's like someone's got to make business decisions in this whole thing. Or you wind up like what happened with the snowboard shop, where I don't even know how it became someone else's other than Ken's.
I just also feel like the whole snowboard industry was like that at that time. And the problem with that is that while everybody was fighting against each other, all the ski shops and ski brands walked into the market and became what it is today.
I've got a sticker at home that has instructions on the back about, you know, put this sticker on your board with pride. It says on the front, it says, fuck K2, but like the K is for fuck is the K from K2. And it basically is like ski brands suck, you know, like there, and it's from that era. It's from that time where it's like, we need to fight these guys. I remember feeling the fight, but fuck, by the time I was into it, K2 had some pretty badass
established
boards.
Pretty early. Like K2 was building boards back in, I think like 86, 87, something like that. I think
you're right.
Like,
with the Ecstasy and the gyrator.
Yeah, the Dan Donnelly model was like probably around the same time as the Craig Kelly.
1990,
and that was a legit board. Like that was a totally legit good board.
Except for the retention plate bullshit.
Oh, right. You screwed the board, the bindings in.
But that shape.
I saw quite a few people in the bottom of the half pipe with bindings missing.
Just like taken off.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say it while you mentioned it. The bottom of the half pipe is the first place I saw you in real life. I've told you this story a whole bunch of times.
What was it, on my back or on my head?
You were...
not the flat bottom, at the bottom of a half pipe.
You were at the bottom unstrapping, and I thought that if you saw me do something, that I would be a pro. I really did think that. I had that naive thought of like, oh shit, it's Nick's. He's got stuff in the magazine. He's a tastemaker. He's a gatekeeper. And so I went as big as I could go, which you didn't see. But what you did see was me coming at you at completely out of control at full speed. And then I just slam on the brakes and just like peppered you with like snow. And you went, what the fuck did you do that for? And then I was just like, there was my break. That's
blown opportunity.
It's gone. It's totally gone.
Well, I could barely get myself sponsored, let alone you.
Isn't that funny? Like the perception for me was that you were writing for the magazine, so you were snowboarding. Yeah. Like that really, I didn't have any idea about people making money selling ads or people writing and trying to make a buck. Like 50 cents a word. I had no idea. I just thought, oh, he owns that magazine if he's the one writing in it.
Yeah, I had a weird, not a weird view, but yeah, kind of the same similar thing with just pro snowboarding in general, that like once you got good enough, you just got sponsored.
Right.
And you got hooked up and you got in the magazines and you flew to all these events and you did all this filming and everything. And I didn't really understand the work ethic behind it.
Yeah.
And the self-promotion. You know, like I was definitely not a self-promoter and trying to be like, you know, we called those guys sprayers, you know, the guys that sat and talked how great they were.
Totally.
Were sprayers. And we didn't appreciate them. We didn't like them. We didn't,
You're being nice. You fucking hated them. Like they were...
Yeah, we talked shit about them.
Right.
That,
the Creekside Mob, were you a founding member of that? Was that a real thing? Is it a legend? Is it a myth?
The legend grows bigger every year, I believe.
Year. Cool.
Was I a founding member? No. Was I part of it? Yeah. It was really just kind of a group of friends that were gatekeepers, really, in the Creekside, right?
By the time I was here, it was like, if you see one of them, don't look them in the eye. Like, it was like that.
See, that's the legend.
Yeah, the legend was like, they beat people up for just
It would be more like, don't look them in their cross eyes. Just be hammered at the bottom, drinking Dusty's Dry.
Totally. Yeah, I think there's an argument to be made that that's the first crew, like that the crew that starts all crews. I mean, there's the Tahoe Dump guys. They didn't call themselves anything, though. They didn't call themselves the Tahoe Dump crew or whatever. You know what I mean? Maybe they did. Maybe the Soda Springs guys.
It was kind of. I really don't know the actual origins of it, because it was just one of those things where it just kind of slowly happened, and then it became bigger, and people started saying it more, and blah blah blah. Right?
Yeah.
But I think it was kind of along the lines of what RDS all was, right? Red Dragons.
Same, yeah.
That there were these legitimate gangs in Vancouver at the time, and Colin and Moses and Sluggo and those guys just started making a riff of it and calling themselves the Red Dragons. We're Red Dragons, and they started spray painting skate parks and everything.
The RDS, right.
And everybody's like, "Whoa, who are these Red Dragons?" Like it's a gang, and like this mythology and story behind it grew, that they were like. But it was just those guys, and so it was all fun. And it was kind of the same thing up here that I think the original person was Stu Andrews. I may be wrong, but
sure.
Yeah, just saying, we're Creekside Mob. We're Creekside Mob.
Because, right. I'm thinking Team Extreme, because there was Team Extreme that was like way long ago. That was out of the Calgary snowboard shop, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe it was.
I do know what you're talking about. It was like Steve Matthews and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Team Extreme. To call yourselves that. Creekside Mob is legit now. Like still, like it never was a bad name. But then you can make a bad name a good name. Seymour Kids. Like when you first hear it, you're like, you're children, but they were children.
At the time.
Yeah. And now it's like Skids or whatever. But yeah, Creekside Mob it had gotten to myth level.
Well, there was articles in the newspaper saying that there was a gang and all this stuff, and there was organized crime, and it started getting like bigger than what it actually was.
But then it kind of got bigger than that, even with the whiskey days later on. Like, because some of those guys were in Creekside Mob. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. It would be like Bazawi and Waynezo's in there, and Tosh, and Stu and everything. But
that's so sick.
Yeah.
But what was it like? Okay, so actually, let's go back to what you were talking about. There was no blueprint for a pro snowboarder, but there was, like you say, sometimes, especially if you're trying really hard, if you're snowboarding every day or you're skating every day, and you're feeling like, hey, I'm getting better. You can see the hierarchy at a park, and you're like, okay, once I get to that level, some promoter comes out of somewhere and says,
like an Aspen Extreme or something.
Yeah.
If you win this contest,
I'd love for you to, ride for Smash Skates choreographed or whatever.
Obviously, I kind of knew about it through skateboarding and everything like that, and but it was still just based on talent. Like, if you're really good, you'll end up starting to ride for these companies or whatever. They'll approach you, and we did the whole resume thing back in the day. And I mean, this was even before the video resume, like where you would literally write these brands and go, here are the tricks I can do, and you write out a list.
I love it.
You have like the Kodak pictures in there, fresh out of the 1 hour. We can't wait too long. We got to get these in.
Totally.
And then mail it off to people, right? And you would mail it off to Burton or Sims or whoever, right?
Barfoot all the way down the road.
I mean, sometimes it worked, and sometimes they fell on deaf ears. But,
Crazy Banana.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going down, you're like looking in the magazine. Okay, just add Mistral. Okay, yeah.
No, never Crazy Banana or Mistral.
So you already had some taste.
Yeah, I definitely frowned upon. There was even some brands that I didn't like that were core, that were like, just not my style or not my thing. I mean, I was definitely Burton boy, like, wanted to be that, wanted to be brushy, wanted to be Craig, wanted to be that like style.
Yeah.
Because they were on top. They were the best, right? They represented what, Powell was at the time before like the Plan Bs and everything like that.
Totally.
So that you obviously wanted to try to go for that, right? So then that also became a problem too when you were like really picky about who wanted to give you money or give you product, and you're just kind of like, no, like your shit's whack.
You're saying no to Bolé or something, and then a few years later, you're like, oh.
No, I still would have been okay with that.
So yeah, you're happy with your choices, right? I've been surprised the last few years by the proliferation of brands like Patagonia, North Face, like where those were untouchable. But then you go, wait, Rankwit was in a North Face jacket way back when, and that was
80s,
fine.
Like
and
the late 80s.
Yeah.
I remember there's that picture of him doing the nose bone. He's got the...
and it looks cool. They look good.
Yeah. The full red and black North Face suit on.
Right.
And I was like, there was a perfect example. You're like, well, shit, like that looks rad. That's Rankwit. He's got the sickest style. So he made it legit that you were like, oh, we should try to get North Face or whatever.
Totally.
Even though they were a ski company, they had a good crossover because of the people they chose or whatever.
Yeah, mountaineering. That's how it gets through now. It's like, look, they're a mountain company. They make outdoor gear for mountains.
Yeah, right. You know what? It is funny you say that because, like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, you go up into Rendezvous or a Roundhouse and, you wouldn't see that kind of stuff. You would see occasionally, like, the occasional Gore-Tex jacket, or back then, if you didn't afford Gore-Tex, it was always 20,000, right? 20,000 mil.
Yeah.
And now everything you walk around, I mean, we're an anomaly here that we have a lot of people that are riding the mountain all the time, variable conditions, and a lot of money. So it, I wouldn't expect to go to, a Wisconsin hill and see a ton of Patagonia, but that stuff never existed. We could barely sell the high end stuff, And then it just, now it's just everything you see. Everybody buys only top end stuff. Yeah.
So that North Face kit that Rankwit had, Jamie saw it working. Like, he's like, wow, he's dry. Like, that's crazy. And said to Joel Gomez, like, we've got to do Gore-Tex for sessions. And I remember it was like it was tough. It was like one jacket. Everything's like $199, $249, $299, and then Jamie's jacket is like $799 or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was
which is now standard. I mean, obviously it's 20 years later or 30 years later, but now that's standard pricing for a jacket.
But it was dope too. It was like, oh, dude, I wish I was that rich.
Yeah, Sessions was the first brand in snowboarding to license Gore-Tex.
Yeah, by a long shot too, by a few years probably, right? And now it's all Jamie stuff with the Gore-Tex and Volcom.
Yeah.
Like, when I looked at the Volcom line of Gore-Tex, I was like, wow, they've really got this sewn up. Like, they've got all the colors. What the hell's going on? And the prices. Like, their price points are crazy.
Like the new stuff right now.
The last 5 years of Volcom.
Yeah. No, they've got affordable Gore-Tex. You can buy a Gore-Tex jacket from Volcom for like $300.
And then you think, like, I don't know about you, but for me, I was like, I don't know if it works, but I've used it.
Yeah, no, I actually ride top and bottom Gore-Tex or Volcom stuff because of Ty Element. So he hooks me up. And,
Tyler's the best. He's the absolute best.
Yeah.
I love that guy. And he's from like Bolton, Ontario. He's from like a super small town, Ontario, which is dope. I've been riding Rip Curl this year. Yeah. And it's like 30K. I've rode some 10K stuff.
Well, if it works for us.
It still works. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. The stretch is nice. I like the stretch.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's stretch in
As you get older, you need that stretch a little bit more.
Holy shit, dude. I really need it. I just graduated from 36 to 38 waist.
Oh, nice.
Each one of those hurts. Jesus Christ. The time you buy the pants and they're too small when they're new and they're too small. Like, I thought these had more stretch. Yeah. Getting older is insane, dude. But when we were young, so Whistler as a draw, like, remember year after year after year, it was like the best resort in the world. Like, all the snow magazines, ski magazines, that's what they would do. They'd be like 10 best places to ski in the world.
Yeah.
And Whistler was always number one.
Yeah.
And I get it. Coming here and being here and riding here, it's like, there's two giant mountains that back in those days, were you a Blackcomb guy for a really long time? Like there was like an anti-Whistler sentiment.
No, I was never in that group where it was, I'm a Blackcomb, I'm a Whistler guy. I definitely rode dual mountain all the time.
Wow. Yeah. That's rare though, right? Like there was a real divide.
We were more, because back then there was only the park on Blackcomb, right? And even before the park, the best hit runs were on Blackcomb that we could find.
Crystal Chair.
Plus, like, there's the quarter pipe and the wind lip and all that stuff. Like,
oh yeah.
When I came out here, I was going there day one.
Yeah, me too. Same. Straight to the wind lip because of Damien. Damien's like, if there's a jump in the world that's worth driving all the way there.
There's a funny story. It's the very first time I come to Whistler and come out here. I'm moving here for 1990. I'm moving here for the summer. Like, deal's done. Pack the car. I'm out here. And, we get here and I think back then we were like able to buy spring passes, or maybe I was borrowing somebody's pass or something.
But anyways, spring passes for $99.
Me, Cascade, like Johnson, stuff like that. We go up. And we're like, let's go to the wind lip. And like, we have no idea where this thing is, like, we're just like, see a picture of Doug Lundgren in the magazine. We're like, we're going there.
Yeah.
And, no idea. So Johnson takes us to the wind lip and we go to the wind lip and we show up and like, we get up there and within 2 minutes of being there, who rolls up? Damian Sanders, Dana Nicholson, Steve Graham, Dave Cioni, and, the fall line guys.
Wow.
And I'm just like, no. Like, no, I've never hit this thing before. What do you mean they're here?
Yeah.
I don't know what's about to happen. So like basically I hike up and Johnson's hit it a million times. So he goes at it and just fucking, and for anybody that's never seen it, all you see is a lip and the valley on the other side. And it's like, fuck. Like, there was never anything that big, like, that I'd ever seen in my life.
And it sends you up.
Well, and that too. It's 30 feet tall, and you're tucking, and you go into this thing. So you hike up, and you're just like, oh, man. Like, all I'm picturing in my head is the picture of Doug Lundgren, So I bomb at this thing. I'm going, and, I'm like, okay, like, I'm going way too fast in the bottom. So I do a little speed check, and I go, and I reach the top of the lip. And I literally go as far as from here to you. Like, that's as far as I go on the wind lip. 2 feet.
Totally.
And I'm just like, oh my God. Like, beat red, embarrassed, and just like,
yeah.
No, I didn't just do that in front of Damian Sanders. So I'm like, okay. So I hike back up and I go back up to the exact same spot and I don't speed check and I fucking gone, And just like, 1,000, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Hit the ground, tumble, eat shit,
I can remember having a hard time falling asleep thinking about how high up in the air I was off the wind lip. Like being like that. It's like being on a tall chairlift and looking down and now you're dropping, but it's flat.
Well, because you're just looking straight up at this wall and then all of a sudden you're in the air and now you're looking straight down and you're like, oh my God, well, look at the difference. So and then we figured out, okay, you know what? It's easier if you spin. Yeah. And so we started spinning and everything, but that day was insane. So we went from that. Johnson was doing 1080s. This is 1990, and he's doing like 1080s off this thing.
I think he was the first to do a 1080. And
we saw Steve Graham doing triple backflips, but Wildcat style almost, but Tuckney, like end over end, like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
I don't think he didn't ride away from it or whatever, but he was just going for it.
Pretty hard to ride away.
And then Damien was doing like the hugest back and frontside threes and everything. Amazing. So then we go from there. And I guess Damien and Johnson had met before and everything. So they're like, we're going to go to the quarter pipe. You guys want to come? Then we go over to the quarter pipe. This is all the same day. And now we're sessioning the quarter pipe. And this is my first day in Whistler other than the snowboard camp.
Amazing.
And then we go to the quarter pipe or whatever. And we build that up. And then same thing. I'm like, oh my God, go flying at this thing. Boom. And then the G-forces in the bottom of that quarter pipe were like, if you'd never hit it before, you didn't know. So first thing I do is just pile right into the wall. Just bam, And then as the day goes on, start figuring it out and, going bigger and bigger and everything, and had an amazing, amazing day, And basically the biggest compliment of my day was that Damien was like, yo, dude, you ripping, blah, blah, blah. And like, we were doing, tuck knee stuff. He's like, I can't figure that out, like, how do I do the tuck knee and the Japan airs and the taipans and all that.
Amazing.
So,
yeah.
So,
you got to get soft.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm going to like this place.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's an incredible story. Yeah, I piled into the quarter pipe and then felt very embarrassed as people yell at you like, you fucked up the in-run, and then like you're trying to fix it. They're like, don't touch it.
Just get out of here.
Get the fuck out of here.
Get over to Lemon's Leap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the day we sessioned the quarter pipe, there was also like just a big air to flat that like skiers were hitting the
so
air
that's
to flat.
that's Lemon's Leap.
Yeah,
that's over to the right of it.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's exactly it.
So Lemmings Leap is just one after another people. It's not really there anymore because it used to be like a almost like a gap jump. So it'd be part of the wind lip.
Right.
But then the wind lip separated and there would be a higher one and a lower one. Yeah. And it's only like a 6-foot gap or something like that, but it's kind of an uphill
but it's a long
step up.
Run in and
but it would be constant lineup of people there, like not really knowing what they're doing and going for Lemon's Leap. And they would go and they would just pile right into the wall. Like I would see guys come flying down on skis, hit it, double ejection, flip over, boom. Like we're all, oh shit. And they get up. It's awesome.
They're claiming like, it's on.
So every spring we'd go up there just with a 6-pack and some weed and go and watch Lemon's Leap all day long. And dude, there would be ski patrol there peeling people up off of the landing. And the lineup would build up because they're waiting for ski patrol to go.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
Sure. And then sure enough, as soon as ski patrol left, everyone would start hitting again. 20 minutes later, ski patrol would be back.
I remember watching people in videos hit over the snow fences there, and we'd looked at them and been like, that's technically doable.
Yeah, first person to do that was Kearns, I'm pretty sure.
That's a cool claim. Sick.
I remember him going up Seventh Heaven and talking about ollie-ing the fences and everything, and I wasn't there, but I remember seeing he did a Santa Cruz ad or something like that where he's airing over the snow fences area.
Yeah, that's rad. Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine what Kearns was like in those days. Like just wild.
He was a lot.
He was a lot. He's still a lot today. Yeah,
he was awesome. Like I mean, we loved him until he turned on you, or got drunk and started becoming. You became the target of his rant or assault.
Yeah.
Verbal assault.
Yep.
Yeah, like we none of us came out unscathed. Like everybody got it at one point or another. But
yeah.
No, he was one of the first people I lived with here too. I was with it was me, Kearns, Casagay, and we moved into Paul Culling's place on just over here.
Wow, that's a deep cut name too, Paul.
Yeah.
With luxury and the whole thing. I worked with him at Boardroom, years after.
Yeah.
But I reminded him of his checkout because I remember. His checkout also included a strip where he was making out with some girl. And I was like, he's like, oh shit. Don't tell my wife. Like he was kind of like tripping. He's like, well, do you have a copy of that? I was like, no, I don't have a copy of that. But Colin was, so he already owned a house at that point?
So yeah, his parents owned a place right over here, just across on the bay over here in Emerald.
Wow. Like on the water.
Yeah, right on the water.
Damn.
But back then, it was also unswimmable Green Lake.
Okay.
Right? Like nowadays, you can actually swim in Green Lake because there's not as much glacier fed, throughout the summer.
It was freezing.
Freezing cold.
Everything up here is freezing. I remember coming up here to swim with people and being like, this is not swimmable, though. None of this is swimmable. It's fucking freezing.
We have an amazing window from... usually about mid to end of June.
Yeah.
Is really good. It's like crisp, clean. You dive in. It's just like, like a full-on kokanee or something.
Sure.
And then somewhere about the middle of July becomes E. coli season.
Gross.
You get swimmer's itch everywhere.
That's not good.
So you can only go out to like the middle of the lake and dive in like anywhere in the middle. If you're anywhere close to shore, it sucks.
Duck shit or whatever it is.
Yeah, and then nowadays, the lakes get so low. Like we're at Alta Vista, it gets so low in the fall, like in late August, early September, that you don't even want to dive in because you're only like 4 feet off the mud bottom, you know? So
Yeah.
Unfortunately, our lake days are numbered up here.
That fucking sucks.
Yeah.
So,
but anyway, living there.
Colin's house, is he living there too? Like, are you guys living in the basement?
No,
suite
he was renting it to us. He would come up on the weekends or something like that. But you
remember how much it was? Like $500
no idea.
a month or something?
I wish I could remember. Probably something like that, like 500. It probably seemed like a mortgage to me at the time or something.
Right. I remember Murray saying that he had just in '93 when I moved out, he'd just given up a room in a house that was $100 a month, and I remember thinking like $100 a month. How the fuck do you afford that?
So. That story it's kind of, so I moved out here. That was the first place I lived. But what I didn't realize is two things. We got here in the spring. So the mountain was still open. I didn't realize that the mountain actually closed for a period of time and then it reopened for summer skiing.
Right.
I also didn't realize how far Emerald was from the village.
It's so far.
Like nobody told me
back then.
Nobody told me. No, it's still now. It's Pemberton South, right?
Yeah. It's far. It's far.
It's a ways, and the bus did not come out here back then. So I had no means of transportation.
Just hitchhiking the whole time.
And I had saved up a bunch of money to live for the summer, so I didn't need to work. But, you know, Casagay was going. He was off doing bricklaying or something. Kearns was only kind of up on the weekends or something like that. And I had no vehicle. I had nothing. So the only thing I had was my thumb to try to hitchhike into town. And that was a lot too, you know, like you're getting with some sketchy dudes, some fun dudes.
Totally.
Whatever.
You don't have weed? I wouldn't have picked you up if I knew you didn't have weed.
So yeah, I was kind of stuck out in Emerald a lot for the first little bit of moving out here. And then I would eventually like get a ride into town and then just stay in town all the time.
Yeah.
So then the mountain opens up and we finally start doing summer skiing and everything. And this is still before the camps even show up. And this crew of dudes that we see up on the hill, we're just kind of like, hey, yeah, like, you know, just following, doing laps and everything like that. And then later that day, we bump into them at Nestor's. It's like, hey, you guys on the hill. Yeah. We're like, oh, what are you guys doing? Whatever. Like, oh, we just live down the street here in White Gold. You know, you guys want to come by and hang out? Like, yeah, okay, we'll come and hang out. And like, where are you guys from? Like, we're from Vermont. Like, cool. Like, you know, so basically this crew was like Stratton locals before it was Russell Winfield, Doug Burns, this guy Corey Eddy, and Trish, his Doug's sister and everything. And so we just started hanging out with them like, oh, you're from Vermont. Like, you know, like, do you know Jeff Brushy?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, of course we know Brush. And they're like, we're just like, yeah, bullshit. As if these guys do, you know, like we're going to run into the three guys in Whistler that know, you know, and then like 2 weeks later, Brushy's out and he's hanging with us. Like,
wow.
Oh. So what happened is that we would start hanging out with these guys all the time. They're just fun dudes or whatever. And I lived so far out here, I just started crashing at their house and would stay there and everything. And then eventually they're like, you know, hey guys, like, are you guys going to like move in or something? Like, okay, I'll pay you $50 if I can sleep behind the couch. Like, done deal. So my bed was behind the futon.
You rented the behind the couch.
But then the funny is, fast forward
another
20 years, the second house that I lived here in Whistler is the house that Rube Goldberg lives in now. Sorry, before he built his place out in Pemberton.
That's unfucking believable. That's amazing. So like you go visit Rube and you're like, I used to sleep
the part that he lived in wasn't even there. It was like the front part of it or whatever, but that was the house.
Unreal.
And it was pretty funny. Like, so all these guys come out from Vermont. We're like, oh, these guys are legit. Like they actually know all these guys and the Burton dudes and everything like that. And then the other thing was that we just kind of started accumulating people coming over and hanging out.
Right.
And then Ken had a trampoline for the snowboard shop camp, but they tried to put it at the hotel, and then like somebody got hurt, and they're like, "No, you know, we're not getting sued for this. You need to move this trampoline." So they moved the trampoline to the front yard of the driveway of this house.
Oh wow!
And the whole snowboard camp would come over like at 4:00 to go jump on the trampoline.
Amazing.
Yeah, and we're all just hanging out and everything, and then like this other crew of kids would come by that we knew, that Kearns knew and everything. And we're like, you guys can't jump on the tramp. You're not from the camp and everything like that. You need to wait your turn. And then the camp would finish. And then we're like, no, it's our turn to jump on the tramp. We'll jump on the tramp. We're like, okay, finally, you kids can go. those kids were Sansalone, Swaro, Derek Scott, Browner.
My God. The whole Seymour kids.
The whole,
That's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, they were like 13, 14 years old, and we're just like...
So that's the age gap. Like you're 3 years old or 4 years older than those guys.
4 or 5, yeah.
4 or
something
5.
like that,
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, those, I mean, that's some pretty important people right there.
Oh, yeah. It was just funny, like all the people we met along the way and just like how you meet them and where and everything. And yeah.
Well, Whistler, like I said, with winning the Resort of the Year all the time, was also the place where, like, if you wanted to be legitimate as a company, right? Like Jamie Salter knew right away, hey, Kemper, we got to do our photo shoot at Whistler. It's got to be at the biggest place with the biggest pros, like that kind of thing. So you were constantly having people coming out here from all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Test their shit.
Yeah, a revolving door,
sell
for sure.
their shit, like all that stuff. When do you first start working? Did you work for a shop? You did. You worked for...
No, I never worked in a shop.
You never worked at a shop?
No.
You weren't like part of the Circle guys or any of that stuff?
Well, I mean, indirectly I was.
Yeah.
Basically started working for 4-Star Distribution.
But there was Nubile something before that?
Nubile was 4-Star, yeah. So I started working for Nubile.
Yeah.
Which was...
Johnson and...
No, Johnson was never a part of it. Originally, it was Maury, Kearns, and
Kearns.
This guy, Brian. And... They really originally started because they needed somebody to sell the whiskey videos. So they started this distribution company, and the first thing they did was the whiskey videos, and then they slowly started doing other stuff. And then Maury talked to Rawl and those guys and got Special Blend involved. Then Foursquare came along, and then Forum came along.
Yeah.
And then they ended up with Shorties and all this stuff.
Circa.
So that was stuff, that came much later, yeah. But Nubile.
So they did Shorties. That would have been before the Forum thing by 3
same
or 4
time
years.
because Shorties was the hardware, like basically the skateboard side of things.
Yeah.
So they were doing the skateboard side of things before the snowboard stuff started.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I basically started with Nubile Distribution back in '97. I was washed up snowboarder at that point. Needed a job.
Yeah, we kind of skipped your whole career. Like, so you like, who was the first sponsor that was like a legit kind of sponsor setup?
Yeah. Okay.
Were you Canada team or did you get to international team?
No. So basically, what had happened is came out here to Whistler that summer, that 1990 summer. Progressed crazily during that summer, and started meeting everybody and becoming friends with the guys that I admired 3 months earlier in the magazine, are now hanging out with them and doing trips down to Squamish with Brushy and shit like that. Killer. All of a sudden it was like, oh, these guys are just regular dudes, and in that aspect of like what I was talking before, like if you had the skills, you got the respect from the fellow snowboarders and everybody like that.
Yeah.
So then it was like, oh, who should I talk to at Burton? Who, and I mean, obviously they get this stuff all the time, but it was like, oh, talk to this guy. He's the guy to talk to. He's like the real guy, right? And talk to these guys. But nothing was really happening. And then my first at that time though, before, I was sponsored by West Beach. So that was out of Calgary, West Beach, and everything like that.
Yeah.
And then that transformed into head office, Chip Wilson. Chip Wilson would call me directly and talk to me. He was my team manager.
That's amazing.
It was pretty funny that to see where he is, one of the richest people in Canada.
Unbelievable. And one of the richest people in the world, probably. Yeah. Definitely Canada, but yeah.
He's up
wealthy,
there for sure. Yeah.
Wealthy motherfucker. But back in those days, he took a very invested interest in the athletes of his, because he's always been a designer, right? And actually a materials guy. Like, he knows about sewing. He would build samples, but he wanted the feedback from, I know the story of him discovering Devon or whatever. Like, he was like, I'm putting you in charge of this year's. And everybody's like, wait, we already have a team of designers here. They're like, yeah. He's like, I like that guy's style though. Like, So like, he's picking your brain about stuff. And you're on the team.
We would go down for, like, later on, we'd go down for design meetings and stuff like that.
So sick.
And yeah, just, which is the way it should be. The people that are on the hill should be the ones telling you how it should be done, and not the guy that sits in because he went to a design school or something like that.
Right. You're like going, okay, these cuffs don't work. They're not tight enough.
Well, we had this famous argument with Chip about pockets, zippers.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, zippers need to go down, like
always, right.
Why do zippers go down? Gravity.
Yeah.
Like number one thing, gravity.
Yeah.
Zippers don't fall up, they fall down, right?
Totally.
But we had this argument, and he's like, no, I want the zippers to go up. And we're like, for what reason? He's like, well, snowboarders, when they put their money in their pockets, and if they're like, if they're open a little bit at the bottom, the money will fall out of their pocket. But if there's open a little bit at the top, it won't fall out.
Wow. It's amazing the things.
I mean, he had a point, He knew that snowboarders were poor and that every dollar mattered. But it was just like, I guess.
I have some up-zipping pockets right now.
There's a big difference, though, between the zippers nowadays.
And the ones that were just
back those days.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was that.
Yeah,
and then
that's amazing.
So it kind of came down to that I was not really finding people to ride for and everything. And then out of Calgary was Powder Stick Snowboards.
Lindsay, sick.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So basically I'd always gone to his skate park and everything like that. And that was
he had a skate park in Calgary?
Yeah. So it was called the Powder Stick Skate Park. And
that's weird.
Way up in the north. And he made skates and snowboards and everything like that.
And even the skateboards were called Powder Stick. Is that right?
Yeah.
I never understood that. It's like you could use a different name.
You could have.
But anyways, he's still going now, still selling stuff to manufacturers. He's one of the biggest.
Like an OEM?
He sells parts like cores, edges, inserts, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Out of San Diego, I think. Or LA, somewhere close to LA.
Okay, but in the States
but he's still doing it, which is sick.
Yeah.
He's one of the unsung heroes of snowboarding from Canada. Definitely a big one. Because he went and set up the option factory. Most people don't know that. Yeah,
I do kind of know that because from my point of view, there was some weird things that happened that, I chose to ride for Powder Stick because I was promised a lot at the front. It was, we were going to be part of the design team. We were going to be part of the pro. We were the pro. Me and Mark Cascade did at the same time.
He was on Powder Stick too.
Yeah, so we both signed on at the same time, and we're like, let's do this. Like he's like, you guys are going to be the focus and everything. We're going to build you up and we're going to do this, that, the other. And a friend of ours, Rob Price, was the main board designer and builder there and everything. And so it was like this, like cool, like it's at home and all this stuff. I could be a part of this. And, the promises, it started off really well. We, went out on the PSTA, which was Pro Snowboard Tour of America, sponsored by Budweiser.
Amazing.
Started stop one, Bank Slalom and Baker. Like, oh my God, I'm in Baker, like doing this.
Amazing.
Stop 2, we're in Bachelor doing a half pipe contest there. Stop 3, we're in June Mountain, Stop 4, we're in Mammoth or something like that. Damn. So it was insane. Like I go on this month-long tour in a bus or a van. And, but then it just kind of fizzled up, like there wasn't obviously the sale. Again, I didn't understand the business aspect of it.
Well, he didn't do production or something. Like there was, like Powder Stick took out ads and everything, but from what I've heard, there wasn't inventory to buy. Like he wasn't.
No, it was made to order type of thing. So we would go up and make our boards, like custom make. That was the coolest thing.
That's sick.
Is like because again back then, like everything, the stances were like 18 inches. And
right.
We're like, I want a 21-inch stance. I want a 22-inch stance.
Yeah.
And it would be basically built with less inserts and everything, just exactly my size.
That's actually amazing.
Yeah. And it was only a goofy could ride it and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. Sick.
So there's a lot of cool stuff like that happened, but then it just kind of dried up and it was one of those missed opportunities. If I had waited maybe a little bit longer to talk to a better brand or a bigger brand or something like that out of the States or whatever, it could have led to more stuff. Because then after that, I was just always scrambling and looking for sponsors and trying to find a match.
And Castanhé goes to luxury.
He went to luxury,
and there's that Paul Cullen connection right there, right? he's living in Paul's place, and then Paul's got a company he's building. He's like, I'm definitely putting you on the team.
Yeah.
Sick. Yeah. Derek Scott also on that
Scott
team.
Sheen.
Yeah, Sheen.
Mike Estes.
What a random one that is, right?
There was one other. Yeah.
Trying to think if I could think of anyone else on luxury.
Yeah, I think that's maybe it. That was
Lance Mountain.
Oh yeah, right. The guest model. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So then by that point, now that's almost 97.
No, oh God, no. This is 90, like fall 90. I was
oh Jesus,
getting on with Powder Stick or whatever in West Beach, and
oh yeah, what am I thinking? 97 is way
no. I was done
so
by
much
then.
shit had happened by then. Yeah.
So yeah, like 90, and then we did the Baker thing and all that. That was pretty funny. Right before Baker, I called up Chip and I was like, hey, I'm about to go on this road trip, and like do this, like I need new gear, like I'm still rocking the old clown stuff, like the blue with the orange knees and all that, right?
I didn't realize this, sorry to interrupt, but that Chip Wilson's brother was the Wave Rave guy.
Yeah.
So the clown pants at Wave Rave and West Beach, it's two brothers with the same,
or brother-in-law or something like
brother-in-law,
that.
Maybe. Yeah, brother-in-law. But they are like, they're making essentially the same pants, one in Colorado and one up in Vancouver. It's fucking crazy.
Well, yeah, it started out of Calgary, though. West Beach started in Calgary.
Was the snowboard
so basically
stuff out
Chip
of Calgary
was he's like The Rock. He started at Calgary Stampeders.
Oh, my God.
He was a football player for the Calgary Stampeders, and then was originally started, he was really into volleyball.
Yep.
Got into volleyball and started this volleyball shop. And then it became like a surf shop, and he made these shorts called Chip that were like reversible shorts, right? So
the
like
Bermuda
plain on one side and then like crazy colors on the other.
The Bermuda shorts.
And then that became like, he had West Beach, and then the West Beach brand started and everything. But we would go down to 7th Avenue Mall and go into a store, and it would be like sand everywhere in the store on the floor.
What?
To represent a beach, like another crazy Chip idea.
That's so amazing.
Yeah. So,
I saw the West Beach volleyball logo right before it was because then it was surfers, then it was snowboarders.
Yeah.
But I've seen that logo.
The three guys in a row, yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, but I thought that he came out to Vancouver sooner.
Yeah, I think this was probably, I'm more like, this was like 85, 86, something like that. Yeah. And then
by 90,
probably like, by at least by 90 he was out here. Yeah.
He's got that West 4th shop.
Yeah.
And then the people living in the back have a ramp in there, and then the shop takes over that space and keeps the ramp. That was crazy. Yeah,
it was pretty funny. And we'd go down and go upstairs into the design part upstairs there.
Are you one of the three guys in the West Beach ad?
Oh, no.
That's the thing?
No, that's Jay Bomber. And then that guy Scrubs or something.
Yeah,
whoever he was.
I don't know who that was.
I don't know if he even existed. He might have been an AI character back then.
A made up person. Because I'm thinking of those ads. It was black and white. You can't tell who it is. It's a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
But
no, we did get totally. I got sandbagged for a West Beach ad though. It was a poster, and I went down with Anthony. This is way later, like the second time I was on West Beach, like back in like 95, 96 or something.
Yeah.
And we went down for a photo shoot, and this guy wanted to do the shoot like it was a Calvin Klein ad, like
awesome.
Yeah, black and white, and we're all, but nobody told us that we were supposed to wear West Beach stuff. So I'm just basically wearing like some blind cargo pants and like, I don't even know what kind of t-shirt.
Yeah.
Like, but you would think that if you're going to a brand,
they would
have a bunch of
shit and make sure
but
you
no,
put it
they
on.
Expected us to wear that. So I'm wearing a t-shirt that conflicted or whatever. So they made me take off my shirt. So I'm standing there with no shirt on in this ad.
I love it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I interrupted you. You were saying that you called Chip when you're going on that tour.
Oh, yeah.
To get new gear.
Yeah. I was like, hey, I need new gear. We're going out. So he FedExed some stuff to me. Arrives the day before I'm about to leave.
Yeah.
And I'm like expecting, he's like, yeah, I got the sickest suit for you. I'm sending it out. And like this box shows up, and I'm expecting like a whole bunch of stuff, like whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe a t-shirt for an ad or something.
Not a bad idea.
And I open it up, and both the jacket and the pant are just like red, like deep red. And I'm like, whoa. Like I've never worn a matching suit my entire time.
Sure.
Always contrasting top, bottom, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just bright red. And I'm like, okay, I guess this is what I'm wearing. So we get in the van and we head out to Baker, and I put this thing on, and the very first person I see is Kearns. He looks at me, he looks at my suit, and he goes, "What are you supposed to be, a blood clot?" And I'm just like, fuck. So the rest of the time, I just was like, left the jacket, had to wear the pants, and just wore like a flannel or a sweatshirt or whatever.
Course.
Like, we're in California and shit like that. Like, it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh my God. Like, really? Like,
thanks, Chip.
Well, thanks, Kearns. Like, I wasn't self-conscious enough about wearing red suit.
Blood clot.
What are you, a blood clot?
You know, it pops. I understand. Like, it does pop in the blue sky. And you was it Vitelli that you were just mentioning, Anthony, when you said Anthony?
Oh, yeah, Vitelli, yeah.
So did he shoot for West Beach? He was on West Beach at one point.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you kind of timeline, like, fast forward a year, I'm sitting at the top of the pipe, and these two guys roll along, and they're wearing top to bottom West Beach gear, blue on black or whatever, and like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, like, oh, West Beach. And I'm like, hey, I ride for West Beach. I'm Nichols. And they're like, yeah, we know who you are. And it's like, oh, hi, who are you? And it's like, hi, I'm Kevin Young. And this is Anthony. And I'm like, hey, guys, how's it going? Where are you guys from? Like, oh, we're from Ontario, whatever. Like, no way.
Ridge, yeah.
So I met them for the first time at the top of the half pipe, and they just moved out or whatever.
Yeah.
And and then we became super good friends and everything like that. But yeah, then later on, Vitelli became when Kev was kind of in his prime and heyday, Vitelli became the team manager of West Beach as well.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it was like, yeah. And, so he put me back on or whatever, but I was, not really a focus at that point. It was Browner and, Trevor.
Sick.
And,
sick.
Trying to think, there were some Euro guys on there too, but
that's a great team.
Yeah. Yeah, it was super cool. Trevor was just a kid, like 16 or whatever it was. And yeah. So
when was the Devon era?
Oh, Devon would have been on there too. Sorry.
Right around that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Devon talked about there was supposed to be a big Whistler photo shoot, but it was maybe gray out or it was bad. And then Devon was like, you guys should come to Seymour. There's some pretty good hits down here. And there would have definitely been some moans and groans about it, right? Like, fuck, we're leaving Whistler to go to fucking Seymour. But then, like, there's some iconic shots from that.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. Seymour is small, but...
Boyer, I think Boyer was maybe on that.
Boyer was West Beach, like, way earlier.
That was, that was when they first started.
Yeah, so we're jumping from...
Alex Toporowski and shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're probably jumping 5 years back and forth here. But
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Jesus.
No, the time continuum when, like... nowadays you look at it and, like, who was riding for who 5 years ago and what tricks were being done 5 years ago compared to now, compared to, like, 91 to 96 is, like... a world of difference.
Such a world of difference, right?
Yeah,
right.
Like the things and everything that was happening at that time was still like, I look at it as like, oh yeah, well, we're doing this, but it was still like we were riding hand dug half pipes. We were like, a 20-foot cliff would have been huge. Like
totally.
A 720 or a 1080 was a big deal.
1080 was insane, but probably even 95, 96, 97. Then it started getting crazy. So by the time Nubile is picking up speed and not just doing the videos, and now they are a legit thing, Kearns becomes a filmer, doesn't he? And leaves?
So basically Kearns and Brian wanted out. They sold their portion of the company to Maury's girlfriend at the time, Jade.
Yeah.
And so then they took over, and that was in North Van. And then shortly after that, they moved up to Whistler and reestablished up here. Maury had a slight interlude, like lived up here, here in Whistler, then moved back down to Van, and then moved back up here.
And you took a job there as like a sales manager or something?
No, so like basically I was kind of, like had a bunch of injuries, kind of, burnt my last bridges with a few teams, and
Sure.
and now I'm just sitting there kind of going, okay, now what do I do? And like, I want to get a job, but I don't want to be construction or whatever. I kind of want to be in the industry or something like that. But, I wasn't really pursuing it. I actually was literally up in Pemberton at KY and Anthony's house and sitting there. And this guy that had been working there at the time came in and he goes, hey, Nick, just to let you know, Ryan Tarrant quit today. He was the sales guy for Nubile at the time. And I was like, oh, weird. I should probably should ask Maury for a job. But then I was just like, oh, let's just keep drinking some beers and hanging out.
Nice.
So then I'm like, I had to go back to my house, like next door, went to my house, go in, and Sabine, that was my roommate there, or landlord, she goes, hey, Jade just called you. Like, I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, okay. So I call him, and then she's like, here, let me hand you over to Maury. I'm like, hey, dude, what's up? He's like, yeah, I don't know if you heard or not, but Ryan quit today. I'm like, yeah, I heard that. And he's like, I don't know. Are you interested in a job?
Wow.
Like, well, yeah, absolutely, 100%. I'm like, what's the deal? And he's like, well, you'd just be doing sales and stuff. I'm like, well, when do I start? He's like, well, how about tomorrow at 8? And I'm like, dude, actually, I've kind of had some beers, a couple of joints. Like, do you mind if I come in at 10?
Unbelievable. What
And he's
a way
like-
to start. What a way
he's
to
like,
start.
yeah, okay, dude, fine.
That's amazing.
And then I kind of set the precedent because I really never started before 10 o'clock.
That's amazing. So you had a job now on your own terms.
Yeah,
kind
it
of.
was pretty funny. Like,
And people know you in the industry. Like you had a celebrity in the early 90s Canadian snowboard scene for sure, with the writing, photos, all that stuff. So when you started as a sales manager, it was like, and there were legit brands. That was a thing. So it was like a no-brainer.
yeah, I mean, I don't think it was like that. Like all these people were like instantly knew who I was or anything. The people that did, like the core shops, they would be like, oh yeah, hey, is this Chris Nichols? Yeah. I'm like, sure. So, but then a lot of the people you talk to, they have no idea who
I forgot this.
Craig Kelly would have been.
Right, that's
You
true.
know?
I forgot this, but one of my favorite Nick's moments ever, and pretty much, so the second time I would have met you, boardroom, Big Air, Seymour, you got hired as an announcer.
Yeah.
It was like a one-off gig. Come up.
Well, for that one, I did
For
a
that
lot.
one.
I did like the West Beach Big Air and
Right,
West Beach half
right.
pipes and all that.
But it
kind of
wasn't
stuff.
like you were like, see, typically Murray would just get someone on staff, hand them a
yeah.
microphone, tell them what to do, right? But you came up as a celebrity announcer. And I remember him just going, and we're in his cabin right now. So this is a fun story. He was going on, you like, you have to talk about the sponsors more. And so in between, you just read like 100, there's like 50 sponsors here. Like you just read them out really, really quickly.
Yeah.
But the best part of it was the banter about just the people. You were making observational humor about like, oop, here comes another guy from Seymour. Look at that 27-inch stance. Like it was so fun because we didn't have that in the Vancouver scene. It was like the Whistler, I don't want to say snideness, but just like the attitude was on the mic the whole time. And Murray was losing his mind because he's like, not like that. I want you, this is families. And you're just like, wouldn't be told to do it a different way, which was awesome.
Well, and that was the same with like the West Beach contest and stuff. Like I just called it as I saw it and like would say what was on my mind and
Shit
everything.
was going crazy too. Like it was like,
and the crowd appreciated it and everything.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely like the people that have something to lose or could get hurt were definitely concerned.
Totally,
I didn't really mince my words. I put it out there, and you mentioned that the Big Air at Seymour, and I never really like picked on people that I didn't know.
Right.
Or
Right.
I never picked on people and said things that were things they couldn't change about themselves or anything like that. It just like
you wouldn't be canceled for the shit you were saying. It was just
it was
hilarious.
borderline though.
Yeah.
But I remember that I went, and then somebody came up to me afterwards as we were like wrapping up,
Yeah.
and this guy, like angry dad, he's like, "Hey, you gonna hit this jump?" I'm like, "Oh, actually, I don't know. I maybe if we have time or whatever, but I don't know." He's like, "Yeah, I'd like to see that." Like, oh, you calling me out, dude? Like, good on you. Like, I probably wouldn't do the best air right now after like 10 beers.
Yeah, those were the days. Yeah. Like that, it was like a $10,000 prize. There was like a quarter pipe aspect of it if it was the same one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, no, I remember it was it was Baxter and Chris Wilson and stuff. Chris Wilson.
And Chad Harris, was that the kid from Seymour?
Yeah.
I think you were calling him Chode the whole time. And it was just so fun, dude. Like, it was a really, really, I just remember, like, the stock in Nichols for me went way up that day. I was like, oh, nice. These guys are doing fucking badass shit up in Whistler. This is cool that they're down here at Seymour at our, local event.
Yeah.
And people came from Whistler to compete in it. Like, it was a big deal. It was rad.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I not all the time, but obviously there was always the connections between the people in the city and the people up here. Totally, whether they come up here, we went down there. So yeah, it's all part of the scene. It was
Sansalem was straddling at that point. He was half. Still a Seymour kid fighting with Keatley over we're going to be skids now or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah,
and but that was that's a fun memory. I can't imagine what year that would have been. Probably, it would probably be 97, 98, something 97, like that. Yeah, sure. Probably later on there, yeah. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Fun events. So once you take the sales job, you're in there, you're selling shit.
Yeah, it was pretty funny because I didn't have a sales background. I had no idea what I was doing or anything. The first day I went in, like, Taryn was like, okay, here's what you do. Like, oh no, first of all, you got to do Taryn style. Like, hey man, like, job's pretty relaxed. Like, you just kind of like answer the phone, you check the fax machine, you answer some emails. Once that's done, you grab this here is the latest copy of Vice. You read through that. It's pretty good. You can go outside, have a coffee, maybe smoke, you're going to want to be in the office around between 1 and 2 because that's when Maury and Jade show up. So you're going to want to look busy at that point in time. Nice. I'm just like, holy shit, dude, how did you get away with this for so long?
And then it grew big though, right?
So yeah, it literally like, I think the day that I started, it was like annual sales were somewhere like 300,000 or 400,000 or something. And within a year, we were already doing like $1.5 million or something like that.
Totally. Yeah.
And I know it wasn't just us. It was like the brands that we had and everything.
Yeah.
But like we go back and talk about it that we had no idea what we were doing. So we couldn't do any wrong.
Right.
We had an unorthodox style of just like, this is how we're going to do it. And this is how we're going to talk about it. And like, I realized that like 80% of the job was just talking to people and bullshitting with them and like picking up the phone and going like, hey, how's your day? Blah, blah, blah. You go shredding, or go skateboarding. And you would just talk to them for like 5-10 minutes. And like, they would always answer the phone. Like, I don't have time, dude. What do you want? And then you like start talking and all of a sudden 15-20 minutes later, like, oh, that guy sucks, blah, blah, blah.
Totally.
And then at the end of it, you're like, hey, you want to buy some skateboards? Like, yeah, okay, what do you got?
Totally.
And it was just like a different way of doing it. And it was easy for me because I wasn't faking it, like I knew what I was talking about.
Totally.
And I knew like the brands and I knew the love for it and everything. So it wasn't hard. It was easy to go in and do this because it'd be like talking at the skate park or on the chairlift. It's the same shit. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I just got to sell them some skateboards or some wheels or a TSA shirt or something like that,
Totally.
So,
yeah. And then it becomes booking deadlines and
and then
seasons and then all
the bullshit, bullcrap rolls in for sure.
Right, because because these are huge brands during the heyday.
Yeah, I mean at that point they were not huge. They were big. They were getting there.
Right.
The day I started was or not the day I started, but within that month was the first shipment of Forum snowboards ever into Canada.
Wow.
So we're like, okay, we're bringing these boards in. And they were the pictures of Terrier and Ingemar and Jamie. Is it
I think it's
Is it?
Yeah,
there was 3 Peter Line models with those guys on them.
The white and the blue.
Yeah, they were different sizes, whatever.
Yeah.
And we shipped out, I don't know, 500 of them, 600 of them, whatever, which I thought was a shitload of snowboards. I've never seen so many snowboards in my life, right?
Right.
We shipped these out. And I believe somewhere around 400 of them came back.
They just broke so easily. Those
they just
things
snapped. They were so bad.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, like what an embarrassment. So
we're
I'd
going to
call
be
up,
out of, yeah, we're going to be out
I'd
of
call up
business.
the shop and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like your board broke. Like, what do you want? Do you want a refund or what do you know? They're like, no, we want another board.
Right.
Like, I'm like, oh yeah, but you saw what happened in this one, right? Like, yeah, no, we want another board. Like, this kid is not taking anything else for an answer. Like, okay, so we ship out the board. And then all of a sudden it became to the point where we had to give them credits for boards for the next year and everything because nobody, like, they would not give up their Forum snowboard. Like, people are saying, like, okay, well, it's broken. We can warranty it, but we have nothing. They're like, ship it back. Send it back to me because I want to ride that board. Like, it was such a cult behind it that they just had to have that stuff, and it just started growing from there. It was just crazy that, the next year was insane. And then the next year Devin got on board and, then they added all the other guys and then the Forum 8 became something, and
unfriggin' believable. Yeah. It was a year or two with Peter.
Do you know the story behind that?
Behind the Forum 8? I do.
What's your version?
So Travis Wood told me that he gave the guy's name. He knew the marketing director at Burton. Burton said, we're doing the Burton 7.
No, that was Maury and I.
So that was you guys.
Well, Browner.
Yeah.
He was riding for 7.
Burton
and Browner's
7.
our buddy. Like we're hanging out with him and he's telling us I'm riding for Burton 7. It's this tight little knit group of up and coming snowboarders to compete with Forum.
Yeah.
So we have this insider information and we go to Rawl and we're like, Rawl, like Burton is about to bring out this Burton 7 to compete with Forum.
Yeah.
He's like, huh? Burton 7? Fuck them. We got 8. I swear to God, that's what he said. Fuck them. We got 8.
I fucking love it.
And like the next trade show, all of a sudden it's the Forum 8. And they just took this and made it into this marketing campaign that was like,
it's amazing that at the time we were in the thick of it. The Burton 7 was the shit.
Yeah.
And Forum 8 was like, oh, it's better. But it's like, you're thinking Forum 8 is better than 7. It's like,
it was priceless.
Yeah.
Fuck them. We got 8.
It's incredible. And that's the time of insanity. Like I think Travis Wood talked about having some insane amount of inventory just on the side for people to come in and just take.
Yeah, the early days at 4-Star were a heyday for sure.
Yeah,
so,
marketing.
I mean, well, it was just the exponential growth that happened with those companies with Forum, 4-Star, and Special Blend was insane. Like I said, like we doubled, like pretty much doubled every year. So like within 3 years or 4 years of working there, we're doing like over $5 million a year.
Jeez.
And it was just crazy. You just couldn't stop it.
As a bunch of kids that are now, mid-20s doing...
I mean, we were kind of mid-20s when we started. But.
So you're getting to where you're 30, though. Like, I mean, that's young. These days, that's nuts to have a distribution company, $5 million in sales, all these brands.
I think when I was 30... there was a comparison. A girlfriend of mine at the time, her sister-in-law was a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I was making more money than she was as a lawyer by selling snowboards.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it was great. It was awesome. It was unbeatable because no matter what we did, it sold. And when it didn't sell, we always had this, we're like, slap a skull on it.
Yeah. Totally.
Like, oh, we can't sell these bindings anymore. Put a skull on it or paint it green. Forum green.
Forum green. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember because I was a shop guy, so I would deal with Craig and Craig would come down and it was so, you'd be like, can I get some boots? Sure, man.
Yeah.
Get some bindings. Yeah.
I remember going into cause we had our own, so we were the same way. Like up here, we could grab whatever we want, give out stuff, and we had people down there all the time in function. But when we went to the warehouse in California, it was just like, oh my God, like it was a warehouse the size of our warehouse to distribute stuff was just their promo cage,
Yeah, that's what I heard.
There was not a lot of bookkeeping going on.
Yeah, which is what ended up kind of crushing them in the end.
No, it wasn't that. They definitely got everything on board. Everything was squared up and doing well. it was they actually brought in an accounting program or like a software system that was designed more for like a repeatable company, like somebody that like would be building an airplane or something and needs to keep ordering the same part over and over and over again.
Right.
Whereas our SKUs kept on changing all the time. You know, every year you're updating colors and designs and graphics and whatever.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the same part going in, and things would get mixed up. And so what would happen is that we would try to order a boot, say Devin Walsh boot or Peter Line boot, and it would say we already have, 600 of them in stock that was over from the year before. And so it wouldn't order those boots. And then we came up short on those. And other stuff got doubled up and everything. And we were able to maintain it in Canada. We were somehow, because we didn't have the same system.
Yeah.
Or we had a better handle on it or something. But in the States, they were double shipping shops. They were missing huge orders and everything. No. And it was just basically an accounting error that took them down,
Yeah, and, logistics.
To the point where they had to sell the Burton, and basically Burton took them over, and then shortly thereafter shut them down.
Yeah. So what happens to you guys when the Burton takeover happens?
We tried to scramble. We tried to build something in Canada that would have been, because we were the number one Forum Foursquare special blend dealer in the world. Right. We crushed it. We were like, obviously we have the mountains and everything, but we had built a good reputation with everybody to the point where they trusted us. And if mistakes happened, we would fix them.
Yeah.
And we were, if you go back to the old SBCs and everything, we were number one in Canada. We were either right on the tails of Burton or ahead of Burton in most categories,
Sick.
And elsewhere they weren't, So anyways, we tried to recover. We wanted to start our own distribution or something to try to redo it. And it just didn't work out. There was just too many. The guys that took over the program at Burton were ex 4-star employees that just wanted to sever all ties with Forum, previous Forum 4-star to new.
Yeah, start over with a new contact list or something.
It's kind of weird because it just seems like an American way to do it. That we had these relationships, we had these accounts.
Yeah, why wouldn't you just keep Canada going seamless? Yeah. We already have a distributor.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but they just didn't want it that way.
They took it direct or something. They probably
I can't even remember. I mean, a lot of my friends ended up doing Forum and stuff in Canada, so I had no problem with any of them or who was working with it or whatever.
Right.
But
it was a different company by that time too.
For sure.
Remember, like the boards, it was a different vibe. It's a totally different feel. It was like all of a sudden it was Burton, and Boardroom had never dealt with Burton before.
Right.
And now all of a sudden we're dealing with Burton, and they're saying, "Oh, you can only have Forum here or there or something." There was some weird.
Yeah, no, I remember Murray coming in one time and going, Forum is our Burton. Forum is our draw, and we're going to be the biggest dealer, and just don't open these guys or whatever. The biggest orders. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, I remember the stuff coming in and just being like overwhelmed. Boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff.
Murray probably helped me get a house up here. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and it sold. It was good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that was the best part about Forum is that the sell-through was so high. Even on bad winters and stuff like that, we still somehow sold. So
yeah, it did really well.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it was almost like you couldn't believe that Burton couldn't do it. Like, it was like, are you guys doing this on purpose?
I think there was obviously some other things involved that, from my understanding that, it's like an adopted or a stepchild or something,
Totally.
That the love that Jake had for that is maybe not the same as his own personal brand that he had built from the ground up.
Yeah. Why not just keep doing 7? That was actually the question that Donna's team, I guess they gave it to her. She's the only one. Maybe I had to do it for Jamie Salter as well. Like, that wanted questions vetted. What are you going to ask me? Usually I just say, we're just going to talk about snowboarding. So I had to make questions for her.
Right.
And the one question that she kiboshed was, why can't Burton do a cool sub-brand? Like Forum, 7, Ronin, like Analog, all these cool little side shoot things always seem to fizzle out. Why is that? And I mean, what a rude question, first of all. But like, I don't know, like, what do you think?
It's a valid question because, I mean, obviously the success of Burton and like when we added stuff to 4-star, like, so first of all, we had, not we, but the brands had Special Blend. Peter Line comes along, says, I want to do something with you guys. Foursquare comes along.
Yeah.
Out of that becomes Forum. Now you got these 3 brands that go along and all of a sudden, it all started with, we're going to make boots, right? We're going to make snowboard boots. So they bring in this guy, Charlie Manos from Soul Tech.
Yeah.
Charlie, you want to come work for 4-star? Yeah, I'm just making boots, right? Yeah, you're only making boots. Come in. First thing they put on the table, here's our new Circa shoe. You've worked with Chad before, right?
Right.
And he just goes, fuck.
Yeah.
So now they start Circa. And then Circa was an instant success. And out of that became C1 Denim. And
there was like a DJ program in there too.
Oh yeah, like
it
a
was
full
like,
music program and everything. Yeah, that came out of that.
That was fucking
And then
cool.
Genius. And then Genius was kind of right at the time when everything was getting all mixed up with the accounting and everything like that. And it became,
okay.
But Genius also, that was Peter's project, and that had the ability to be a huge thing.
Huge.
And
Kevin,
it just didn't work. Yeah.
Tara,
yeah.
And like Kevin
Eddie Wall.
finally free from his contract with Lamar, which was like the most bizarre shit ever. He was just crushing it on Lamar forever. And then, Genius just, it fizzled when it should have been huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, again, I think I can't speak for anybody at Burton because they know what they know and they've done an amazing job at what they do.
Right.
I just feel like that's probably the issue is that where the passion lies with the main brand.
I think also, it's huge. When you talk about Burton,
you know what?
You're talking about 600 people. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, but like Nike has never been very good at their offshoot stuff either.
Truth.
You know, like the Nike brand itself is
insurmountable. Almost nobody has, right? When you think about like Vans, whenever they would go after like a Nike style shoe, it's like stay in your fucking lane, dude. Yeah. And the same with Airwalk. I always use Airwalk as the thing. As soon as they were like, we want to do boards, boots, and bindings, it was like, had they stuck with boots, still to this day, they probably would have
been one of the biggest brands.
The biggest brand of snowboard boots. Easily.
Yeah.
But when you diversify into other categories.
That's generally what happens to a lot of these companies is that they bite off more than they can chew at the time. They try to grow too fast and fail.
Yeah, and Jason Brown was saying just in a private conversation that he was always mad at Burton for not believing that they were a cool company. They were kind of this weird corporate entity when they could have Burton could have been the cool company. You've got all the cool fucking guys.
It was the cool company.
Yeah. But they didn't believe that they were cool. Like that was the thing.
Well,
they didn't have
what
that
everybody
belief.
always tried to do is, there was only infinite growth in limited growth rather. Sorry, in within the snowboard shops and everything, right?
Of course.
So there became a point where they had to open up the sports stores and everything. The ski stores, the sports checks, everything like that. If you want a brand to grow, you got to expand the distribution or provide more customers to go to those shops you already exist.
Totally.
Everybody always tried to compensate and apologize for opening up and growing the brands.
Right.
And again, it goes back to the first conversation we had that with the two skate shops arguing with each other in one town, they allowed other distribution to come in and pick up these brands because they didn't get along with each other or didn't unify.
Yeah.
And all anybody ever did was like, if you open up Sport Check, I'm dropping the brand.
Right.
If you open up so-and-so, I'm dropping the brand. Rather than going, okay, you know what? Like if you limit what you sell to those guys or...
That's what Ride came up with. I remember Ride was like...
And they didn't do it that way.
You can buy the stuff we're going to sell to them, but they can't buy all the stuff we're going to sell to you. Up to you guys.
So segmented brands where you could do the cool stuff. And everybody just still pushed back so hard. So rather than that, Burton tried to do... here's Analog, here's Seven, here's all these kind of things, unincorporated and everything like that.
Inc, right.
They did do that, but it just never like they would always go back and try to open up more, and put more stuff in and everything. And I don't know. I think after 20 years, people have figured it out because you can go and buy Vans anywhere, but they're still cool. You can buy Nike anywhere, but they're still cool.
Volcom.
You know, you can buy Burton most places, Volcom, stuff like that. But the brands have just been able to maintain better marketing, I guess what you could say.
Right.
You know, because people still want to buy it and still people are still into it.
That's what it is. It's a tighter marketing
Like there's
team
nothing
that
wrong
knows how
if
to
your
do it,
brand
right.
is everywhere and people are wearing it. It's when people can look down. Like today I'm wearing a pair of Air Maxes in get my x-ray, my knee x-rayed.
Yeah.
And the nurse is like, "Oh, I love your Air Maxes."
Right. Yeah, right now in you know, like the Airtime podcast, a couple of other places have put it out there about this Montec dope clothing phenomenon, which is essentially epic marketing, shitty stuff, and then, you know, core people in core. Like it's weird because there still is this core of snowboarding, but it has less influence than it did before.
Yeah.
And now it's influencers outside. And like I'm watching it going, fuck, I just want to go snowboarding. Really. I don't want to shit on dope. I think the stuff looks good. Probably it doesn't look like it works good. I don't know. Like just from, I saw Angry Snowboarder tearing it apart and showing like, maybe it's not technically that good, but it's like, it is being successful in the space right now.
Yeah.
You see
And
it
I think with that is not everybody is as dedicated to going up the hill as we are or Airtime guys are or whatever, because we need the best shit. We need Gore-Tex.
Sure.
We need top of the line stuff. I have way too much product at my house because I need everything for different days and different shit, and I need to look different or whatever.
But it's back to the beginning of the
a lot of
conversation.
people only buy one outfit for the entire year.
Sure.
And they don't need to spend $1,200 or $1,600 or $2,000 on one outfit to go snowboarding in. That may only last them as long as that one season as their dope gear or their Montec or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know what it costs either, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, I have no idea.
See, we don't know what we're talking about. I think the thing is that not everybody. We were in the same era of snowboarding, and I would have sent my resume to Mistral, Crazy Banana, Rad Air, like because that's the guy I was.
You would have been made fun of at the pipe.
I would have been made fun of. That's probably what I was riding when I sprayed you by accident. Is like as if I'm ever going to get anywhere riding Rad Air, Crazy Banana full kit, you know, neon green in '95. Like it's. So the Montec is just that. Is really what it is. Is like cool guys aren't going to wear it because it's fucking not cool.
Yeah.
But then to the kids that aren't cool, it's fucking cool. You know what I mean? Like
I do.
They're
but
having fun.
I also feel like we, coming from a different generation, are not the current generation, and what's cool to us is maybe not cool to, to newer kids and people that maybe don't give a fuck like we do, like so invested into it.
Right. Saying, hey, fuck face to make fun of the North Face is probably not as cool. People would be like, maybe like, why are you doing that? Jessica Mears on there. Like there's real people on North Face and they're supporting
100%.
They're supporting snowboarding. It's a fucking rad brand. Whereas before, Mike Jackson making hey fuckface stuff was like, yeah, fuck those guys.
And yeah, I think 20 years ago or whatever, would I be buying an Arc'teryx jacket or getting North Face or whatever? And nowadays I'm like, ooh, this is good stuff. Can you believe this? Like I went out for an hour walk with my dog and I am dry.
Still dry. You shake the jacket off and it's,
you know, like it's not like my West Beach sponge that I used to have.
Wow. That era of stuff, like having boots that didn't work, having clothes that didn't work, wearing a sweater, like you say, you didn't like the kid anymore after the blood clot thing.
Well, I'm surprised
you just put on a fucking sweatshirt and it basically functioned the same.
Yeah, I'm surprised we all didn't die of double pneumonia as kids.
Double pneumonia, exactly.
The shit we would wear and just be sponges up there and ride all day long.
And then it would get cold and then it would freeze. Remember the frozen back of your
the
shit?
frozen butt, yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, we were battling shit. But it was more exciting because next year's stuff really meant something because it was so much better than the year before.
Yeah,
I loved it.
yeah.
And there was scarcity. It was like, oh, I didn't get a Noah Selaznick nub. Yeah. There's none anywhere.
I really miss the that aspect of work, is going back and the design meetings we would have, and sitting down and influencing what was happening, and what what do we need and what do we want, and like,
I named a binding. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah,
the Type 2 binding, Rad Air. What if we called it the Type 2? Hey, that's a good name.
Do we have a Type 1?
Yeah, exactly. Man, it was a fun time. That was 100% the most fun thing, would be designing design meetings and being the expert that rides out on the snow every day and saying, no, that won't work. Well, zippers down.
I still have been in recent meetings within the last 10 years where people are telling you what the industry needs or wants.
Right.
And they live in Southern California.
Sure.
And it's just like, you guys don't get it. Like,
right.
Have you been to the top of Whistler in the middle of January and you go through, 100-kilometer-hour winds and a blizzard into, pure ice conditions, into rain, and then into like sun and slush at the bottom, like all in one run. And you're telling me that this jacket can do all that, or this board or this binding or whatever it may be. And it's like, well, I go snowboarding and I went to this meeting. We were talking about snowboarding, and this is April.
Yeah.
How many days you guys been up? One. One day.
Right.
Like, and you're in charge of designing this whole line plan right now.
That's always been the thing for me.
I'm not saying most brands are probably way better than that, but I just could not believe that in this day and age, that how do you not just pay somebody or give them free product or whatever it may be.
Right.
To just ride and give you feedback on a constant basis.
Because I think the most important thing in marketing now is it can be figured out by algorithms and fucking social media stuff, not so much what's going to work. Like, they're not working out how the fucking materials work and flex anymore. That's all there. Now they're trying to figure out.
I don't know. I mean, to me, you look at Arc'teryx, right? And 20 years ago, nobody would bat an eyelash at Arc'teryx. It was mountaineering gear. It was for the super, like...
And they didn't...
but they always had this reputation of lifetime guarantee and everything.
Yeah.
Really good product,
Marmot,
right?
Yeah, so did Marmot. And yeah.
Again, we're in an anomaly being here in Whistler because there's more money than in most places. But you see it everywhere.
Everywhere.
And I think it's more that people appreciate the time and effort that goes into those products and that they work.
Yeah, it could be marketing though too. They could spend a lot of money on it. It is.
I mean, I don't know. It is kind of now a status symbol down in Vancouver. Like you're walking around in our Arc'teryx
and that
jacket.
was marketing from the beginning. So the Arc'teryx guys, before they'd made the brand, came into Boardroom Lonsdale, looked around at the shop. I think I saw a catalog or something, and I was like, "Yeah, those prices." I saw the pricing and said, "I don't think that would sell here." And they're like, "Oh, we wouldn't sell it here." And I was like,
we're not putting this next to Rad Air.
Right. Yeah. And I was like, oh, shit. So they have built that reputation, right? Like the expensive jackets at work. I think there's a market for that, and they're smart. And now it's 20 years later.
Yeah,
and
I think you're right. Like mass marketing, algorithms, all that kind of shit, where Google and Alexa and everybody's listening to us all the time.
That's what Montauk is.
And then all of a sudden there's an ad in your browser like 20 minutes later. Like you can't even go to a website nowadays and look at something without getting an email like, still interested?
Yeah.
Like, not anymore.
Hey, Subaru. You looked at Subaru one time. Like Subaru.
When I used to go to work and check in the morning, I would get like 50 emails. And every single email is like, order this, warranty problem, this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right? Now I turn on my computer and I get like 50 emails. And there's like one email from my mom, and the rest are all ads.
That's it, man. Same.
Everything's an ad to buy something, take my money. Yeah. And my mom is just like, hey, you coming to see me soon?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's life now. We're in this weird zone where the phone is such a big part of it. Like for me, I shouldn't talk we.
No,
me,
everybody.
I'm fucking saying like 10 times a day, I got to do just one little thing on my phone. I get on there, I forget what the thing was.
Oh yeah,
and then I'm like, fuck, I'm scrolling again.
Well, I just go to check the weather. Like, what's it going to be like tomorrow? Is it going to be nice? I'm going up the mountain, and then next thing I know, I'm like, oh my god, they had a baby. Nice.
Yeah, totally, exactly. And what was I looking at?
Yeah,
I've had it a couple times already.
The Canucks are not going to trade him.
Yeah, totally. And everything is so personalized, right? Like, so like we used to look at the same magazines, the same, 2-page spread. Like
100%.
We can talk about stuff that happened in those magazines that we both saw in 2 completely separate lives, halfway around the world. But now your feed, like, you ever show your feed to anyone? Like, let them scroll through your feed.
It should be private.
Yeah, it's very private. Yeah, these are like private magazines.
You don't want to know what I'm into.
It is a feeling of like, oh, that's way too personal. But it's
also that nowadays everybody gets so upset over somebody having a different view based on what other people think about those views.
I guess
that we're polarized in the sense that it's so public now that if you think this way or you act this way or if you support this person or not,
right.
that it's just an instant battle. Like, oh, you like that guy? You must be just like him, or
totally. I think that it's an unintentional fallout of optimizing for attention, right?
Yeah.
The things that get your attention are the things that you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
like, and now everybody's doing that. Now you've got everybody, sharing and posting things that are wait a minute things. And then someone else is looking at their wait a minute thing going, if that guy thinks that's right, he's a fucking moron.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. That guy's a moron?
Well, it used to be those things were said at dinner parties or wherever.
Sure.
On the chairlift, whatever.
Sure. Or Kern's calling you a blood clot. It's like, here comes the guy who's going to ruin my day. Now it's everybody doing it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not so much Kearns. I would run towards Kearns for sure. Like,
right.
I could handle whatever he would throw at me.
Because the show is amazing if it's not directed at you. The show is incredible.
Well, even if it was directed at me, it was like, whatever. It's like, you got to be able to take what you can dish, right?
Yeah,
and,
totally.
So if you were, and also, if he smells blood in the water, like most people, like if there's blood in the water, you're going to keep going at it. You're not just going to walk away and be like, oh, okay, he's feeling hurt.
Right. If there's
he's feeling hurt about his West Beach jacket.
If there's one guy who stayed the same through everything, it's Kearns. He was the same. I mean, to me, from when I first met, I should stop talking about people like I knew them. I didn't know him back then, but from what I've heard about him, like, huge heart. He was always trying to get people, like lift people up.
Yeah, for sure.
And he was like someone that if he was your friend, you were stoked that you had a friend like Kearns.
Yeah, and he was a friend, and Johnson was a friend, and those guys, like, it wasn't, there you'd be pissed off and be like, oh, I can't believe what he did last night or whatever. But you wouldn't be like, fuck that guy, I'm never talking to him again. You would literally be talking to him the next morning and going at it again, So
yeah, they were icons that were bigger than life to us in the snowboard fan realm, like, and even from stories that they've told, like down when they went to see the Jackass guys, like those guys were like afraid of them because their reputation was like fucking up here.
Yeah.
Like crazy.
It was half real, half show.
Of course.
They had all of that in them.
Yeah.
They were definitely those people. But once the camera turned on, then it was amplified.
And they were hard workers too. Both of those guys. Like crazy hard workers.
Like last one to go to bed. Well, first one to go to bed was always Johnson, but last one to go to bed was Kearns.
Yeah.
And first one up was Kearns.
Yeah.
Machine, like going for it, partying his ass off, and then up bright and early. Let's do this. Let's go. Let's get up the hill and go film again or whatever.
And an entrepreneur in his core, like he just.
100%. He was a hustler from a young age. Yeah.
Yeah. Super sick. Really.
That's Eddie's washroom.
Yeah, for sure. let's come back from the break with a question from Rasman. Rasman has been around as a pro rider for a long time, hey? But then when he hit a couple of years ago with the Travis Lib connection thing, he fucking blew up.
Yeah, and I think he was always legit around these parts, but
totally.
But didn't internationally as well known.
It's so fucking hard for Canadians to break that glass ceiling or whatever the hell you want to call it.
You know what? That's actually a really good point, because back in the day when we were all kind of coming up through the ranks, that was part of the problem too. You know, I talked about just not being in the right place at the right time or whatever it may be, but I always felt there was a shortcoming for the Canadians.
Definitely.
You know, we had a ton of talent. It was mostly concentrated in this area. But I literally got that written back to me from Rawl at Special Blend before working for him. But I was like, hey, I was told to talk to you through Maury and everything to get on the team. I want to ride for Special Blend and everything. And, you know, it was more eloquent than that. But he wrote back and goes, we're good in Canada. We already have Browner, Maury, and Dan Wertel.
Wow.
And I'm like, you're good for Canada because there's 3 riders? Like,
it's amazing.
And in the States, they have, 20 riders or whatever. But
totally.
I feel like the States were always, impartial to Canada because it was, like the magazines were all down there. Everything was all down there. So the guys that were the shit talkers and the ones that worked their way into the system would get all this coverage at Bear Mountain, at June Mountain,
right?
Tahoe, whatever it may be. Obviously, there was a lot of good riders, but there was a ton of shit too.
Yeah,
and we had like this, just basically honeycomb of riders that could blow up at any moment, but they couldn't get past the border. And because our coverage was limited to concrete powder or Snowboard Canada.
Right.
That was it,
right.
and you had to have that breakthrough. And slowly and surely people would break through. Johnson broke through, obviously the first ones were like Boyer and Shorty and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Warburton and whatnot. And then Johnson and Kearns through their own ways. But
and KY just went down to the see
that was still afterwards a bit.
He said he just went down there. Like that was his thing. Like that he
and that there was like a lot of them would go and move to Bear for a month or something like that, right? And get that exposure. And
Sluggo did really well just having those connections through skate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Sluggo was a good snowboarder, but he was not at the top of the...
He'll say it himself.
Best skateboarder, like one of the best skateboarders ever, but not the best snowboarder, but he had those connections.
He had the connections, right. He was already on the international team when World...
And he was good enough when it came down to it to throw a Mick Twist or a 720 off of a Seymour Booter.
Plus, he had to deal with the fact that he was going on trips with Devin and Kevin, and he
already had a name that sold, and he also had the work ethic of understanding what it takes to get that, So, we're sitting there going, "Oh, those guys," but I didn't know that you had to do the sucking up, and I was just in the bar going, "You suck."
Fuck those guys.
Fuck those guys.
Their team sucks compared to us, right? And Johnson, I mean, just because he's come up a few times. I'm doing a complete history of Canadian snowboarding, early snowboarding at least, next year for season 10. And there's going to have to be like 20 fucking episodes on Johnson. The dude was so far ahead of the curve and just didn't get the break. Like he was on the Vans team before Jamie Lynn, but he didn't get the break. He's not still the face of fucking Vans. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, let's, call a spade a spade. He had the breaks. He had the, he burnt a lot of bridges.
Yeah. He was an angry motherfucker.
He knows that too. Sure. And I'm not calling anything out that nobody doesn't know, because he was in those positions and he was primed to be there. But unfortunately, he would drink and say the wrong thing. And,
oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about the Lamar thing. That he basically quit the Lamar team by calling Bert Lamar on the phone at Christmas or something, just screaming at him, swearing at him, "Fuck you! You got to pay me more." Or no idea what he was saying.
Yeah, it was something like that. But I mean, Bert wasn't the best to his team riders anyways.
Of course, right. Yeah, he came from, it's like a cycle of abuse. He was like a 10-year-old on Sims getting, just totally not paid for the work he was doing by Tom.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom, though. Tom was, like when you were on that Sims half pipe, there was a point where fucking Sims was just everything.
Oh, yeah. No, my original was obviously Sims, like Palmer, that era Crested Butte, the method, was like, I just wanted to be that.
Yeah.
I wanted the bleach blonde hair and the skate style and just a little mini shred.
Yeah.
Kidwell, like watching the very first Sims videos and everything, Hawking McTwist and Tahoe and
totally
doing that. Like Sims was everything. And even Craig Kelly was on Sims at that point.
Totally.
And so it was all Sims. And then, Craig started becoming the dominant guy and the style guy.
Yeah. And
you're like, okay, this guy's miles ahead of everybody else. And then all of a sudden he flipped to Burton. It was like, I was that influential. I'm like, it's all about Burton now.
Totally. Well, that mystery air just kicks everything
off. I
off.
wanted to paint my board black.
And it was so sick the way that it happened with him. Like the thing came shipped in a box or whatever. It was like they did it totally right.
Oh yeah, it was the
that was the shift.
If it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for Craig Kelly shifting over, we would be.
Still Sims
would
now.
be the
Still
top thing.
Sims.
Maybe not. Maybe I don't know.
Just like Airwalk, you can always blow it. It always it can always happen. Yeah, Burton really has held in there. Like they're still going.
Yeah, and they're also still one of the only independent companies out there.
There's a few. Big, right? There's a few like Never Summer and stuff. But like again, now
Never Summer blew me away. Like always heard of the brand.
Yeah.
Always seen the ads and everything like that. Never saw it up here ever, really. You know, like maybe once in a while you see one in a lift line.
Sure.
Go down to a Denver trade show and their booth is as big as Burton, if not bigger.
I know,
And it's just like, what? And like jammed and just like Never Summer is like such a big deal in the US compared to Canada.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Kind of like Nidecker was in Europe, right? Like you couldn't sell a Nidecker board here. Oh, there's somebody here.
Uh-oh.
Hello?
The cops?
Yeah, Murray. How are you, man?
Is this live?
Yeah, come in. All right, Murray.
Hey,
thank you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Thanks so much. All right, let's do a wrap up. I don't even know where we were.
You were going to ask me a question for Brasman.
Okay, so the question from Rasman is ask him about the rodeo.
Yeah.
So, what about the rodeo?
What do you want to know?
I don't know what he means. Like, did you invent it? Are you in the running with Jay Brown and a bunch of people on what, backside rodeo?
No,
it's a different deal.
No, so it would be the frontside rodeo. Yeah, it's a complicated story. It's from my point of view. Again, where this is back in 1996. The story goes, I was basically thinking about tricks or whatever. I was watching something on a VHS, and I rewound something, and somebody was doing a misty flip over a jump.
Yep.
But it was in rewind, and I was like, "Oh, that looked cool." And I'm like, "What is it?" And then I started figuring it out. If you do a misty flip and you rotate around, you come back, and then put it in forward, it's like this. It's a rodeo flip, right? I was like, "Oh, cool." Like, started thinking about it more and more, and how would you do it and everything like that. And at that point in time, I wasn't riding for anybody. Kev had just given me like a K2 board, and he called me out of the blue one day, and he's like, "Hey dude, I got to go down to Mount Hood for a photo shoot. Do you want to come?" I'm like, "Sure. What are we talking? Like, when are we heading?" He's like, 2 hours. I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah. Do you want to come? Like, it's all paid for, everything like that." I'm like, "Fuck yeah. Like, jump in a car. Let's go." So I ran home, got all my stuff, got it all. And we head down to Mount Hood. Get down to Mount Hood. We go snowboarding that day. We meet up with like Luke Edgar, who was the
K2 guy.
K2 team manager at the time and everything like that. And it was like a really weird day. Like, it was just like super sunny out and everything. And we started off by just hitting this jump. and like tabletop or whatever. And I was doing just like backside Misty over them. That was my go-to trick for everything. And one of them screwed up, and I went and I did like an inverted backside 3. So like just a straight air like McTwist, but not landing fakie, just like upside down. And I was just like, oh crap, like, you know, like just landed that. I've never done that before. And I just kept doing them and doing them. And then I was like, you know, we should try this trick I was talking about to Kev. Like, you know, I've figured out this trick. Let's try it. So I was like explaining it to him and everything. And we started hitting the corner of this jump in kind of like 90-degree angle. So we're kind of going like this way. And basically, me and him started trying it. I was landing on my toes, but not like completely riding away. And Kev got it and landed and rode away from it, right? So it was like, yeah, you know, how do you judge it? Like, I told him, like, let's try this trick, and then he landed it first, or is it, you know, it's kind of like Edison with the light bulb. I'm sure many people were trying it or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of weird, like, yeah, okay, like I thought of it and came up with it and the idea, but maybe I didn't land it first or whatever. But then it's like we were driving home, and the name, the rodeo flip, is from my Calgary roots. Like, it's going to the Calgary Stampede. You know?
Damn.
It's the same motion of getting bucked off a horse. And
the rodeo,
back, right?
yeah.
So, and then you come back, and like at the same time, a lot of stuff was going on in the world, like Daniel Frank and some other people. And there's a lot of people that were doing the same sort of motion of that kind of off-axis frontside rotation. So,
yep.
You know, I never ever like came waving a flag saying I invented it or whatever. But then I kind of got called out for that, and like, oh, that's the guy that invented the rodeo. He invented the rodeo and shit. So it was like, okay, well, I had my part in it. But,
sure, yeah.
You know, it's definitely something that I tried. I did the best I could with it. Or I don't know.
Right, and you didn't pick it out of, like, you didn't see someone do it and say, I'm going to do that.
No,
you thought it up
in my head,
and you watched it, like you say, in reverse. You're like, okay, here's the motion. We have to come off this way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
and figured out the way that it had to be rotated.
So was it off the heels? Was that like?
This was the earliest styles. So this
off
was
the
like
toes,
we were just trying to
front
figure
side,
it out
off the
and
toes,
figure out the
and
motion.
upside down.
And then later that year, early season, we went up. I think it was me, Maury, Kev, and a few other people. We went up with Ken Ockenbach to like roundhouse roll and built a booter. We got early access and
sick.
Built this jump, and then we just started trying it. And then that's when all the different variations, like trying to go off the toes and everything like that, started happening.
Yeah.
And the thing is that after that, I could hardly ever try to do it frontside again, but started doing it switch, like going off my toes, fakie, like cab style rodeo, right?
Yeah.
And then there was like, you know, it's funny because the trick comes out, the motion's all the same, but then all of a sudden people are like, well, if you go off your heels, it's an underflip. If you go off your toes, it's a rodeo. Whatever, switch rodeo, if you do it this way and that way.
Got you.
So it just like, that's just the way snowboarders and skateboarders are, that they if you do it one way, it's this. If you do it this way, it's that, you know.
Which makes sense.
And then the other part of it was on that same trip, we were hitting like a cirque, like going off a booter and landing in a natural kind of cornice cirque. And so for us, it was front side. So we're just airing off, and we just keep going bigger and bigger and just front side airs into this thing. And I go off one time, and I catch my edge, and I'm floating through the air, and I'm going down backwards this way. And I'm like about to go down hard. And all of a sudden I just turned and looked over my other shoulder, my left shoulder. And everything rotates, and I flip around and come down on my feet.
Duh.
And I was like, whoa, what happened there? Like, you know, I never thought of that. And we were like, you know, we never said backside rodeo, but we were like, that's, you know, we called it the 90 roll. And we're like, it's a 90 roll. You go off this way. And so we started trying that and learning that trick. But then, again, another evolution of snowboarding. it was Peter Line and those guys started doing it and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're like, oh yeah, no, it can't be a backside rodeo because it's like the Indy. You know, there's only a frontside rodeo. There is no backside rodeo.
Yeah.
But then he's like, no, what you guys do is the 90 roll because you go and turn 90 degrees and then flip over backwards.
Right,
and I'm like,
right.
No. We never did it that way. We were always kind of a fluid motion. But, you know, it's just an evolution of like what was going on at the time. And everybody was on the same page. Like I remember reading way back in 1984, Mike McGill goes to Europe and lands the first McTwist, right? But he wasn't the only guy trying it. He wasn't the person that did it, but he was the first guy to get it on film. He was the first guy to kind of have a documented history of it. So he was able to, you know, he called it the McTwist after McGill. So it's kind of like something like that. Like I've
asked,
you know, if it never happened by like it was gonna happen.
So you named it though. The rodeo was
Definitely.
You chose that name.
100%.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
and yeah, rodeos. That was the year because if you think back, maybe for 2 years before that, maybe 2 years before, those big stalled out late 180s. Like that was the trick. You go down to Hood, everybody's doing stalled out back ones. Then they're trying to do these stalled threes. Then it's like a stalled five. And then all of a sudden the Misty Flip came out. And it was like, that was what everyone had to do. But the year of the rodeo, everyone everywhere in every park was trying to figure that out. Remember Kevin got it switch and won the X Games, all that shit? He couldn't do it straight. He did it switch and fucking won the goddamn X Games. It was so sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we always say he caught his edge and fell in first place.
I held that gold medal.
I've been to his office. I've seen it many times. Yeah.
And I was like, it's a big deal. Like it was.
You know, there was a lot of stuff like that. Like you mentioned the late 180s and stuff like that. Like that happened up here too. That happened from us at the skate park. And it wasn't snowboarding. It was Sammy Devlin coming up here and skateboarding, and he would go out a bong hit and and same with shifties, you know, would do these crazy shifties. Yeah. And he'd do a shifty to a late backside 180.
Incredible.
And, you know, so we were sitting around and again, it was like with guys like Brush and stuff like that. We're like, let's try this. Let's go up. But you can't sit there and go, you invented
right.
a late 180 or a shifty on a snowboard because it was already being done skateboarding. You know, so much of the stuff was always brought over from skateboarding.
Well, that's where the rodeo was different.
And that's the only trick that has gone the reverse way is the rodeo flip. Like 90. There was cripplers and stuff, but a crippler was basically like a front side wall flip, like back flip.
Yeah.
You know, it had no rotation to it. It was just straight up, huck a back flip and ride away.
I had no idea about that story because I'd actually asked Peter Line about his claim to it. He goes, I don't really have the claim to it. Ali Goulet has a friend who did something first and they've shot it. Like, because that's a criteria. It's got to be before and it's got to be documented.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, this is, like, obviously it happened. Like, that's, and then name of it,
and that's
too,
the thing
right?
is I don't want to be in that argument. Of
It's not an argument.
It's not an argument. Especially against the powerhouses of the U.S. that have all this documented footage when we didn't have as much of it, or what?
Yeah, and Peter
we were at,
was
like
filming
Hood on a summer day when nothing was happening. It was like after snowboard camps and stuff like that. Like it was late summer and
yeah. And then so once I think that was Jay Brown's claim to it was that Peter saw him do something first, and then Peter was like, "Oh, it was a flip to the top deck of
and Peter did it bigger and better and probably more rotations."
Right. But it's like if you get stuck in that mindset, you can be there for the rest of your life of like, I invented that, nobody knows it. It's like a lot of people invented stuff on their own without seeing your thing too. But then it became the year of the rodeo.
It's never been a point of contention for me. Like I've never tried to be like, well, that funny story about that.
That's cool to hear that story though, because that's
it's cool when you hear it's like you're watching the X Games or something like that, and you hear the rodeo or whatever, right?
Totally.
Like then it's like that's cool. But
do you know the story behind the Crippler name?
No.
It was their drug dealer. Their pot guy had weed, and they were calling it the Crippler, and then Jeff Davis did a Crippler, and the guy went like, "No, that's a Crippler," and that was the name of it.
Funny that you say that, the weed guy, because I just watched Jimmy Kimmel last night, and it was Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg talking about why the Chronic was named the Chronic.
And it's the weed guy?
There was both weed stories, yeah.
Yeah, of course. That's so fun, man. All right, let's get the hell out of here. That was sick, dude. Thank you thank you for coming out and doing this with me. Thank you, Murray, for lending us his place to do it. And thanks for all the contributions over the years to Canadian snowboarding. Big deal. And I'm glad that I'm honored to have you on the show. So
yeah, thank
stoked
you.
that we
Thanks
finally
for letting me do it. And yeah,
sat down.
I don't think it's always been, snowboarding's been with me since I started, like it's always been easy for me to be involved with it and do the things that I do. Like it's never been a struggle where a lot of people are like, think it's work or a job or anything. It's just been fun. And, it took me a while to kind of get back into snowboarding and find the love again. And now I think, I ride better, see the mountain better, like have more fun up there than I did any of the times that I was a professional and or working. You know, that nowadays it's back to the basics. And I think just people should, remember that and understand that like the basics of snowboarding, why we all started, why we do it, why it's fun.
Yeah.
Go up for the basic reasons.
Yeah. We had a day together with Ken like a couple of years back, maybe last year. And it was we're just going to zones. It's like, who knows the zone? Yeah, let's go to this zone. Oh, that was fun. Okay, let's go over here. There's not the consequence, we used to take it so seriously.
Yeah.
You'd be mad at someone for 3 months that, we went to fucking Million. It was tracked when we should have gone over here.
I still ride with guys like that.
Whistler's hard for that because everybody's an expert and everybody has their favorite
and everybody
zones.
gets FOMO that it's it's going to be better here or there, but it's like, who cares? Like where we went was good. It could have been better over there or it could have been worse,
Yeah,
but,
you never know.
Yeah.
This is where we went. Yeah, except where we went. That's what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fun. Wow. Different than when I first moved up here and just, head on a swivel like, oh my God, this is a crazy place. Getting to ride with you guys was like, oh man, this is an amazing place. Just tons of history.
It's crazy when you go somewhere else like Baker or something like that and you look around and you're like, wow, look at this place. Like I haven't seen it in a while and you just look at the awe of it and then you come back here and you're like, holy shit, look at this place. You forget how big it is.
It's massive.
Yeah.
Resort of the year. Right on, dude.
Nice.
Thanks, Nix.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, that was perfect.
Perfect. Thanks.
FNRad shoutouts this week to Chris Nichols. Thank you for doing the show. Special thanks to Murray Fraser for providing the space to record this episode. Murray owns the Boardroom Snowboard Shop. Go to boardroomshop.com and use code FNRAD5 at checkout to save additional money off their sale prices. Tag New Greens or 1910 in any FNRAD post for a sample of the world's greatest organic green drink or a chance to win a monthly draw for a 1910 hoodie. Be sure to come back next week for another episode of FNRad Snowboarding, presented by Skyview Campers and brought to you by FNRad Productions.